Paco, yeah, it's CoCoTALK. Okay, I've pressed the button. Yeah. I have pressed the button. The light is green. We're going to cue the intro. The train wreck is about to begin.
No. Ah!
CoCoTALK would like to thank our patrons who sponsor our show, so our heartfelt gratitude goes out to Al Hartman, Alan Huffman, Allan Murphy, Amigos Retro Gaming, Blair Ledoux, Brendan Donahue, Brian Wiesler, D. Bruce Moore, Davey Mitchell, Diego, Eric Canales, Glenn Hewlett, Graham Zebke, Grant Leedy, Henry Strickland, Jason Downs, Jenna Farron, Ken Riker, Kyle Etter, Malfunk, Michael Pitsley, Rick Hewlin, Paul Fiscarelli, Paul Shoemaker, Paul Thayer, Rob Inman, Stephen Wagner, Steve Batson, Steve Rasmussen, Terry Steen, Terry Steggy, Backyard Shed Gang, Tom C., Tom S., Tim Lindner, Tom Heron, and Tony C. Thank you ever so much, patrons. CoCoTALK is an unscripted live broadcast. Anything can and will happen. The views and opinions expressed by members of the panel and the live audience are their own and not necessarily those of the CoCoTALK show, its sponsors, affiliates, or subsidiaries. Open minds encouraged, sense of humor recommended. If any off-color comments were made, we're sorry.
Hi, this is Dale Lear, designer of TRS-80 Color Baseball, and you're listening to CoCoTALK.
This is CoCoTALK, the only show in the world featuring David Ladd. It's time to grease your weasel and do whatever yo please'll, cause we're about to rock your 8-bit world. All right, we're here, everybody. It's Saturday. It's 2 o'clock. You know what time it is? It is time for the CoCoTALK train wreck to leave the station. I will be the conductor today. We've got a panel of all kinds of folks here, and we got great content in store for you. And we've even got Samuel Gimes. So a little bit of everything. Ron Delvaux, big fan of Samuel Gimes, and we got all kinds of people watching us live already. One of the early birds was Kevin Holloway, and then Chuck Allison was there, and then Dave Phillipson has joined us, and Tim Linder's out there, and Mikey is out there. Alexander Wallace, our friend from Mexico, is out there. Buenos tardes, and Sixie is here. Tom Eric Gunderson, Nick Marotta is in the house, Jim Rye, Mark Overholzer. The audience keeps growing. We're here, and we're sorry. We're going to jump right in, and we're going to go around and introduce the panel. The guy who's Johnny on the spot with the links to the news and so much more, Mark D. Overholzer is here.
Yeah, glad to be here.
The guy who's been carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders for these past 2 weeks, keeping the train on the tracks, Mark Bosley's here. Hey, Mark.
Hello, everybody.
The man with the beard that drives women wild, Patrick Hewlin, is here. Hey, Rick.
Howdy, folks.
We got a special guest who we'll get to learn more of here in just a minute, but Pedro Pena is here today. Hello, Pedro.
Hello, everybody.
And from Arizona, Ron Delvaux's in the house.
Yes, I'm here.
And the chat keeps coming in. Ken Reichert says, Gimes is here? Goodbye, I'm out of here. Retro Eng says, hello, everybody. And our foreign correspondent from Canada, L. Curtis Boyle's here. Good afternoon, and how's it going?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to our guest host, Stevie Strobridge.
No, that's right. That's right. Filling in for Mark Bosley today is Stevie Stroh. John Lowry's in the house. He works for Apple. We won't hold that against him. How you doing, Johnny?
Hey, everybody.
All right. Allan Murphy's here, the guy with the blogs and the games and the sound stuff. How you doing there, Allan?
I'm doing all right. How's everybody else doing?
Oh, we're doing. Man whose name is so nice. We must say it thrice. You know him. You love him. It's none other than Nick Marotta. How we doing today, Nico?
Well, Stevie, you exposed my secret. My last name is actually pronounced Marotta, but I didn't want to correct you guys. So now Marotta is my stage name.
Nick Marotta. We have a
you're so famous you have a stage name. I'm jealous.
That's fun. The man who takes live streaming literally. He gets thinner by every time I see this guy. Pretty soon he's going to be translucent. But Grant Leedy's here. How you doing there, Grant? You skinny, sexy beast.
Hey, how's it going, guys? Glad to be here.
Yeah, good to see you. We have a guy who is known for saying things like,
Thank you. Yes, you're too kind. And thank you.
and also saying things like,
It's been an incredible journey.
it's none other than President of RK Corporation, Dick Adams. How you doing? It is good to see you, Rick.
Thank you. You're not kind enough.
It's in the mail.
Great to have you here. The guy who coined the phrase,
Oh, crocky.
the thunder from down under, Nicholas Marentis is with us. Hello, Nick. Oh, he's sleeping.
He's waiting for his turn in the spotlight.
Yes.
So he'll sleep until then.
Another celebrity is with us here today, none other than.
It is early.
And not only that, but wrong button.
David Ladd.
Hey, David. David, how are you feeling today, and how are you feeling about this show today?
Oh, I'm just sitting here playing some Battlefield 4, killing some people, and I'm just waiting for this train wreck to get rolling along the tracks to see who we can squash on the way.
All right. And on that note, I'm going to put on the brakes and say,
stop right there.
It's none other than Jason, the Coco Man Reichert. How are you today, Jason?
Howdy, howdy. And just remember, 8 out of 10 David Ladd impersonators recommend CoCoTALK.
Screw them other two.
All right. So we do.
Hey, wait.
We have. I'm trying to look at my screen here right now. So we actually have a topic today. That topic, we are going to talk about a CoCo 2 clone board that we're going to call the blue board, ironically enough, because that is the actual color of the board. And to talk to us about that board is our special guest today, Pedro. So how you doing, Pedro? Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me on.
And no pressure. You just have 100,000 people in the world watching you right now that you need to somehow entertain. And go.
I feel the pressure.
I think it's more like less than 100.
Yeah, yes.
I thought it was 20.
Well, one person is enough.
There's 100,000 people sleeping while trying to watch the show, but it doesn't matter.
The rest are sleeping. I know I put my wife to sleep when I explain this to her. Well, anyways, so let me see, where do I start? Well, I think it was January. Well, my first computer was a CoCo 2. As a kid, it was a hand-me-down. Some body from family said, I don't need this anymore, you can have it. And then I plugged it into my TV and I fell in love with it. And for a number of years there, it was my introduction to computers. It was my introduction to electronics, and it's what got me started on my path, the path that I took eventually.
And now you're a brain surgeon?
And now, exactly, I do something completely unrelated. I work in the ocean. But so, I was like, I got to get back to this. And over the years, I was like, I need to buy myself a CoCo 2. I got to get back into it. I got to get reacquainted with it. And so a couple months ago, I was watching Retro Recipes, Perry Fractic, and he had a nice episode, which I recommend, where he actually used the Commodore 64 to send messages to the International Space Station. And I was like, I felt like a kid again when I saw that. And I was like, wow, that's amazing. I'm going to do the same thing someday, but I'm going to do it with a CoCo. I don't want to do it with a C64 because that wasn't my first computer. So then I went ahead, I bought a CoCo and, started messing with it. Then I bought a board from Ed Snyder to get, composite out and all that. And then I got a second CoCo that didn't work. And it was, very frustrating because I really couldn't figure out what it was. I mean, I knew it had a bad salt chip and, and a couple other things that I had replaced, but I knew that the parts that were in there were functioning. And so more or less at the same time, I learned about the Bit Preserve project, which is a fantastic project started by James Lewis, aka the Bald Engineer. where, you know, he says, well, we got a bunch of ancient schematics out there, you know, that they're hard to read and all that, and people still use them to repair these old systems. But so why don't we just get together and sort of transcribe these things into a usable format, a modern usable format that you know, that we can actually, you know, store and use and maybe do something with them. So then I was like, oh, you know what, I can do that. You know, I think I can copy one of these schematics. So I chose the CoCo 2. No one had started it, and transferred the, you know, I captured the schematic. I said, okay, great, I'm done. But there's still the one problem, which actually James mentioned, was that, you know, the schematics are copied, but there's really no way to verify whether or not, you know, other than probing a board, right? And I said, you know, I think I'm going to make a PCB. That'd be a great way, you know, to actually confirm that the schematic is good and that it was captured correctly. So then I started, you know, putting it together. And so I work out in the ocean, and, you know, sometimes I'm on a boat for a month. And then, you know, after, you know, your shift is up, what you do is, you know, usually people just sit around and, you know, watch, you know, a movie or something, or read books, and then go to bed, right? I was like, you know what, I'm going to finish this PCB. And so every night after work, I would sit down and I just work on the PCB and work on it and work on it and work on it until it was done, basically when I got off the boat. And then I ordered it and got it in the mail, and it mostly worked. Actually, mostly. I was surprised. You know, there were very few problems with it. Usually it's not the case with a board. Usually you get a board and you get it and you're like, oh, this trace doesn't go there. Oh, wait a minute, I needed a trace there. And, you know, all sorts of things that happen with the board. But it mostly worked. And then, you know, I made a video then. I put that video up, and I got some, you know, some likes on that one, which was unexpected. And then I got contacted, you know, from you guys. I put it up thinking, you know, maybe somebody can find this useful one day. I had no idea that there are people looking at this really and interested. So then I fixed that board up, and then I got my latest revision, which is, this is not the latest revision. This is the next one. And this is why we called it a blue board, because it's blue. And the reason I didn't pick green to show the boards is that, you know, if I showed it, you know, in the video and it looks green and it has the same layout as a regular board, well, everyone's going to say, well, that's just a regular CoCo board. And he didn't do anything special there. So that's a little bit of why, you know, I actually went out and did it. There are a couple other things, but that's basically what it is. And then I have some, I could show you the schematic and the board. I got a 3D rendition. I was thinking maybe I could bring that up if that was okay.
Yeah. If you want to screen share, be happy to.
Yeah.
So what's your background in designing circuit boards? Do you do this for a living, or is this strictly a hobby?
Well, right now, so for a living, I don't always design circuit boards. At work, mostly I'm more of a technician in terms of maintaining equipment, but we do make new things when we need to. And recently I've been working on several projects, but my training, you know, I am an engineer.
Okay.
And so I do understand and know that I did learn this stuff in school. And, but, you know, as a hobby, I do this sort of stuff as well on the side. So I'll make boards on the side and that. You know, and sometimes, you know, I've sold a couple boards, but I'm not really into that. I like, you know, just goofing around and making things, basically.
Now, is this something that if this becomes a successful thing that a lot of people want to get, and you don't want to be a manufacturer and a reseller and stuff, is that something you would let somebody else sell on your behalf? Maybe work with them?
Yeah, absolutely. It's in fact, it's open source. The whole thing is available for anyone to download right now, and they, you know, can do that if they want.
So was it your idea to just make it the same as the CoCo that we, you know, always loved, or did you make some enhancements like with video and replace the salt chip with other circuitry?
So when I started making the board, right, I thought I might as well add the enhancements because, well, you know, I know that no one uses RF anymore. The salt chip is such a pain, and it can be easily designed out. You know, and I thought things along those lines. And then, you know, a little bit into it, I was like, you know, what I really need to do is make, you know, a baseline, make sure it works. And my goal, well, one of many, but I did want to drop in replacement. But my goal was that I wanted to make it so similar to the original board in terms of layout and component orientation that I could actually use a service manual to troubleshoot it and fix it. And that's what I did. And so I actually, and a bunch of other videos out there. In fact, I was going to use one of the videos that AC put out because his videos are so well put together. And I was going to use that to troubleshoot the board because I definitely expected issues. And there were issues, but you know, I broke out the manual and I just started probing, you know, like the manual said, and you know, within 15 minutes, I had, you know, the big problem that it had found and corrected because of the manual. And so I'm glad I took that route of just making a baseline. But now that there is a working board, you know, I mean, now I plan on branching it off and have many branches where, for example, one idea that I have is to make a surface mount version where most of the components are surface mount. So you can just, you know, you have it ordered and the manufacturer, the PCB manufacturer, could just send it to you already with the components on, where you'd only have to solder in a handful of them. And so that would make assembly way easier and probably bring the cost down quite a bit as well. And of course, the other additions, like, maybe a slot for CocoVGA, maybe have the, S video built in, the composite built in, and, that sort of stuff. Well, I mean, you can do so many things, I think now with this.
Real-time clock.
You know what? I was going to put in a real-time clock in there, but I didn't have tape to tape it on and show it on the show. But yeah, so one thing that I thought might be, I really don't know if anyone even would want one of these boards. I don't know if there's a market for it, not in terms of making market, but a market in terms of need. But watching all these videos and all these projects that you guys have put together, for example, I see Ed Snyder and AC have two independent video solutions. It'd be great if they got together and said, we could come up with a common sort of footprint, and then I could have a board with that footprint. So, you can have the option of, putting in the different, video solutions. Because I would like both an HDMI CocoDV solution and a VGA solution. So, those sorts of things can happen, now that there's a working board, I think,
What did you do regarding the ROMs?
So right now, the ROM that's on there is the one that I took off the donor board, basically. So, I guess that's a legal gray area, right? I guess if you own it, it's fine, from everything I've read, it's your equipment. But, I didn't download any ROMs or anything. I just used the one that I had.
Right. So the original need for this was you had a CoCo where the chips were good, but the board was bad. So you just needed a new motherboard. Yes. And so you took all the chips from a real CoCo and just put them on your new board, and then it worked.
Yes.
Or mostly worked, like you said.
Mostly worked, yeah.
Yeah.
And so one of the goals also was to have new components. So I tried to source as many, which is the longest part of the whole thing, source, components that are, my criteria were basically new components that are routinely stocked, and that seem like they will be stocked for a long time. So you don't have this sort of, and you can do that with the passive components for the most part, and so it took me a while to find, the components to do that. And I did, even, the DIN connectors. Maybe I can show the board here.
Mm-hmm. The other thing is socket everything.
That is gorgeous.
Thank you.
Did you socket everything?
Everything is socketed.
That's good. That makes it very serviceable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unlike the later Tandy models.
That looks quite godly.
Yeah. Hold that up again and just pause it for a minute. Let us just soak that in. Hold it up a little higher. Okay. Look at that. That is, man. That is. And it's so shiny. Look how shiny it is. And
oh my goodness!
And now that you learned all about how the machine works, is there a place where you could possibly gimmeize it later?
Well, so I'm learning about the gimme, right? So there's room on the board. So enhancements, right? So maybe we can, get all the RAM chips into a single, a single chip or something. That frees up some real estate. You know, engineer out the salt chip. What else can you do? Get a ROM chip, you know, single ROM chip, you know, instead of the two that holds both. Things like that you can do. Then there's a whole underside of the board that isn't used at all. There are no components on the bottom of the board except maybe 2 capacitors. But like, you know, all the surface mounts, if we do a surface mount one, right? If I go out and do one, all those components can go on the underside, which frees up the top. You know, so there are things that can be done to free up space to put in a gimme or anything else.
Right, but the good thing about this design is this is designed to be completely compatible to slap it in a CoCo 2 case, right? So all the holes are going to line up and everything, right? Like you talked about the DIN connectors,
Ports,
they're going to ports are all going to line up on the back of the case. So
yeah,
if you had an old CoCo that had bad traces on it, or just was a dirty board, or you hear about the capacitors that go bad after time, the leaky caps or whatever it is. So this is you can just take some of the chips like your VDGs and your 6809s and those things, and just pop them in your ROMs, right?
Yeah. So even
oh, here's a good suggestion. So Tim Lindner is saying make room for ZIF sockets. For those who don't know, that's your zero insertion force with like your little crowbar that you pull down to lock it into place. He's also saying change your power supply to use like a USB wall wart if possible. That would be a nice...
a USB-C is what I was thinking.
USB-C, there you go. Ooh.
There you go.
Look at you. Yeah.
Need the amps,
power
man.
supplies for like the Raspberry Pis. So.
Yeah.
Now, what particular board or case does this CoCo have? Because is it a American one? Is it a Korean one? I see it's a melted keyboard.
It's the American one, I believe. With
the vertical RF.
The vertical RF can.
Okay.
Yeah. And there's, you know, haven't they changed where the sockets go in the back on a couple of different versions?
Yeah. So the other CoCo 2 that I've seen, it's a slightly different on the back end. You know, a board would have to be made, which shouldn't be too hard now that this one is made. That would fit that footprint.
Yeah, there's also a version where they combine the ROMs into a single chip.
Yeah, there's the two socket RAM upgrade versions versus the 8 socket for the 4464s versus 4164. I think to keep things simple, you probably want to like pick one base now that you know that the basic board design is working properly, and then you'll try to figure out which ones are the easiest one to source parts for type thing, and then make that the base for the new ones, and then you can start adding in, here you can plug a CocoVGA, and here you can plug in a composite or an S-Video mod or whatever type thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Another thing I was thinking of is you said you were sourcing these parts so they'd be more common. Would they also be faster so that like memory chips would be faster and would keep up with newer stuff, or does that matter?
I don't think the newer components would affect the speed. What do you mean speed in terms of?
Well, like the memory chips are what, 150?
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay,
maybe faster 120s or even...
like the higher. The faster refresh rate for RAM or whatever.
Yeah, which I believe Brendan's SAM doubler thing, which actually lets the CoCo 2 run at full double speed like the CoCo 3 does, RAM and ROM. I think actually requires like 120 nanosecond RAMs to not occasionally crash.
Right, but now you're at the point where anything that's been done to a CoCo 2, you could do to your board pretty much.
Yeah.
Right.
You've proven the basics.
And if it's open source, somebody who knows how to do this, and what's the engineering software? Are you using like Eagle or KiCad, or what are you doing to design?
Yeah, KiCad.
Right.
I don't even know how it's pronounced. KiCad or KiCad.
People, the same presenter at a KiCad conference will use both pronunciations in their talk. So
the only thing I know is Linux is pronounced Linux, but I can't tell you if it's KiCad or KiCad. But yeah,
KiCad, that's what I call it, and it's
KiCad.
So somebody who's familiar with that software and circuitry could take your design and then tweak it to meet their needs.
Oh, absolutely. Oh yeah,
right.
They can download it and immediately start editing it. And there is a learning curve to KiCad, and but I think it's worth the effort. There are bunch of EDA programs out there that are much easier to use, but they're expensive, and then you got things like vendor lock-in and all that sort of stuff. But this is completely open source, it's free, and the learning curve is worth it. There's a little bit more work behind it, but it's accessible to everyone afterwards.
Have you seen Ed's CoCo 2 that he made?
I've since seen it. Yes, the
little mini
CoCo
one?
2 Plus, I think it's called.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw it. Very nice. I was very impressed. I saw it and I was like, oh man, it's already done. I did all this for nothing. This guy already has it done.
No.
Yeah, but yours is a board replacement, which is important
Yeah.
for people who have systems that they want to preserve. You know, keeping all
This
this.
is the first drop-in replacement.
Yeah,
board that I've
absolutely.
And it's a drop-in for most. I mean, a drop-in for the chips certainly, but not. Well, it's not dropped in for everything. Like, for example, I tried to make it drop in for the DIN connectors, so you can repurpose those, and it mostly worked except for the 4-pin one. But I've already changed that. So if anyone does order the revision that's online, all the DIN sockets should fit. But these are new DIN sockets that you can buy now that have a slightly different footprint.
I'm going to ask a question that sounds like I know what I'm saying, but I really don't. But how many layers is that board?
It's a 2-layer board.
Okay. All right. I know what the question is, but I don't even know what it means. But for anybody who was wondering,
it means it's cheaper.
Okay.
Not a layer cake, Stevie.
Yes.
Dave Phillips had a question from the chat. He wanted to know if you'd found a source for the ground clips to go on the cartridge.
So these, I think I know what he's asking. These ground clips that go on the cartridge connector on the top.
Yeah,
I could not find those. I looked all over the place. I don't even know what they're called. I looked clips. I looked for protectors. I looked. It drove me crazy. But you know, I had other things that I had to spend time on. So I was like, well, you know, I'll leave that. You know, I'll look it up in a forum sometime somewhere.
So do you just use the donated ones from the other board, or what?
Actually, on this here, you can. I didn't put in the clips at all. It's just right to the plastic. If you,
okay.
Okay.
So they're not even necessary, do you think?
I don't think they're necessary.
I think they're to make a good ground connection between the cartridge and the board.
Well, except that, you know, the screw really doesn't touch, you know, the edges of the hole, and it's a plastic connector. So I don't know really. If, you know, I guess I'd have to probe it, but I don't think they were touching ground at all, unless it's different on another CoCo.
There's a pad beneath the connector itself and the top of the board that it clamps down on when you run the screw in.
Now, does the cartridge have?
It does.
Ground connector there? Okay.
There's a shield trace that runs around the edges of the cartridge board that those
Yes.
clips socket into.
Oh,
so there's
okay,
an extra shield around the edges, sort of.
Oh, so maybe I should look a little harder for those. Might be
I've
necessary.
never found that right angle connector.
Or, I mean,
with
is that something you could just re-engineer if you don't need to find that part? Just to figure out some way to make that trace go back to ground, but have the screws make that contact.
I mean, I guess if you bend.
It looks like an extrusion that you know is long, and then they just cut it. You know what I mean? That a company could make.
Yeah, like an extruded. Yeah, I see.
Yeah.
Yeah, or a piece of sheet metal. I guess you can just make one and sort of.
Okay,
form
so
it.
Dave Phillipson now is saying that those clips are not highly necessary. So.
Well, something could be made. I don't think if it's to bring ground, to the cartridge. There are a couple of ways I think it could be done. Maybe if it connects at the top, maybe in a revision of the board, you could have a screw that somehow makes contact. But I don't know. I got to think about that.
I'm going to guess the 3 appropriate letters are FCC.
Yeah, that would be my guess too.
You know how some CoCos had a couple of white strips that you could plug a board into? Probably not the one that you used for your board.
What are you talking about? White strips?
Yeah, what's white strips?
They're for extra memory to upgrade with on some of these.
Oh,
CoCos.
the header.
I mean the header socket for the satellite board?
Yeah, I wondered if he thought about putting something like that in so you could have like 128K and do bank switching and stuff. That's another upgrade option sometime.
Yeah, I mean, all sorts of ideas. I've had all sorts of ideas, and a lot of people have had ideas, and we can do anything now that we have a working board. I mean,
Right.
like Rick said earlier, it's anything that was done to the CoCo 2 can theoretically be done to this.
Yeah, like the Moo board for the Dragon does up to 512K, and that's kind of already got the MMU and stuff built into it for modern Dragons, and that's basically a CoCo reference design, or Motorola reference design since CoCo 1 and 2 was.
It will be interesting if you get an SMT version of this put together, how much space you have for multiple mods. So you can put this or this or this, because now I have space to put 3 different footprints down.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
And Pandora's box has been opened.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, do you actually know all this, all the circuitry in your head as to how it works, or did you just?
More or less, I know, I do understand that there's a CPU and that it uses the SAM to, sort of control access to the RAM and access to, the
PIAs.
VDG and the PIAs, exactly that sort of stuff. So generally, yes, I do understand, how it works. Now, am I one of the guys who designed it and can sit down and say, oh yeah, pin 12 on so-and-so, there's a trace? No, not to that level, but yeah, I understand how it works.
Do you think you have the same understanding as Ed with the board he made?
What was that? Do I what?
Do you think you and Ed have the same knowledge since, you came up with this and he made that?
Well, I've been seeing some of his work, and I think somebody told me it was a Cylon. And he seems to, he seems to be way above.
Okay. All right.
You said you were going to show some like that 3D render that you had, and the overlays that you did to show how you designed the board.
I will, yeah. Okay, so all right, let me see. How do I use this program?
There's a green button somewhere that says share screen. Yeah.
The bottom center. There you go.
Okay, so can you guys see that?
Yes, we can.
So first, this is my repository. It's github.com /
Cuban
QBAN.
coffee. Cuban Cafe Cubano.
Yeah.
Hey.
Oh, well, wrong repository. Hold on a second. Wait a minute. Let me go to the right one.
Resistance is futile. I love that.
I really wish I had come up with that, but I saw that years ago somewhere. I'm like, oh, I got to use it, but I can't take credit for it, but I love it. It's fantastic. I did draw that though.
That's cool.
So it's Cuban Coffee Berzerk. Okay. And so this is a fork of the original project by the Bald Engineer, and you can go to the original one here. This is the main branch.
Okay.
Okay, and I just forked it, and I'm adding my stuff, and as I add my stuff, he merges it to his branch. So if you want to get the latest stuff, you just go to mine. And so there are a bunch of systems here that he's put directories in for people to start on. Some people have started on some of them, some are empty, but the one we're interested in is here. Okay. And it's the 3026 is the one we're doing, but this covers both of them.
Nice.
And so basically here, this is the project. So you download this whole thing, and then this is where you would access, the schematic and PCB layout. Okay. All right. So then that's where you can get it. And let me bring up.
So is this board T1 compatible?
T1?
Yeah.
The T1 VDG chip.
No.
It's got a different pinout.
Yeah,
regular
that's
VDG.
a different. Yeah, that's a different printout. I think was it 2 pins different or something like that. I don't remember.
Yeah, I don't remember off the top of my head, but there's a few pins different. It's not pin compatible with the original 6847.
But that's something that could be added in, I guess.
That's
Okay,
the
so
27B.
Actually, just before you go into the details here, I just want to catch up on some of the chat here before it scrolls off on me. So Dave Phillipson said there are 2 conductors on the cartridge connector that already supply ground, and I'm sure there are many boards out there that do not even have pads or use the ground clips.
Well, this symbol here, right? This is the cartridge connector, and you can see there's 1 ground, 2 ground, 3 ground, 4 ground. So there are 4 ground contacts already going in. So, who said
That's
FCC
funny.
earlier? Maybe,
Yeah, it's for RF. They've got a big ground pad around the edges of the board.
Yeah.
It didn't help because the disc controller plug-in would always give you extra noise. So.
No, probably made it worse.
Right.
So this is the general layout, of the subsystems as I thought I could organize them. So why I'm basically showing this is like, hey, if you guys know better and maybe this can be reorganized and cleaned up for future use, please let me know. You know, that's why I showed this here. But this is the schematic, and you can go into each subsystem. For example, you can go into the CPU and see the CPU and see how, you know, it's laid out. And then, oh, come on, zoom. And then the really messy one, which this is the peripheral, what I call the peripheral sheet. You know, it's got the, you know, it's got the 6822 and the 6821, but mainly it's got the salt chip in there. I didn't know where to put the salt chip. I don't know, is that, you know, does it go with power? Does it go with, you know, peripherals? Because it does a little of both, you know, so I just threw it in there. Anyways, this is, you know, it's there, you know, you guys can look at, this is the actual schematic, you know, as I copied it from manual. So then the PCB is here, okay? All right, and we got it laid out here. Let me turn off some of the layers. You can see the components. And so I copied the position of the components, all right? And this was not easy, okay? Trying to measure things, but I had a little trick. So I did a little thing that this is a nice thing that KiCad has. Let me see here, let me this up. So from the manual, I just took, you know, this image, the board layout, right? Sort of straightened it out and, you know, massaged it a little bit with, I think it was either GIMP or Inkscape, but, you know, whatever, an image manipulation program.
One of those capacitors is crooked. Can you straighten that up for me real quick?
Oh, yeah. Took me 6 hours to straighten that thing. So what I was able to do, I was able to import that thing as a footprint.
Just kind of trace over it?
And trace, and yeah.
Did you have to set like a base scale of one of the chips? I had to set size for that.
Well, so what I did was, and this is why the board was a little bigger, is when I sized it, you know, in Inkscape, I used the measurements I took from my reference board, and so I was off by a couple of millimeters. And so everything just goes. So it's an actual picture, right? So it scales up, you know, according just fine, right? So everything was just a little bit too big the first time around. And so I'll show you, you know, what it looks like here. So I'll place a component, right? And I have it under my CoCo 2 folder here. And then I have my layout. And so that is what that looks like after I scanned it in. And so I was able to just set that down and start, you know, placing components.
Okay.
And so at first, so this helped a lot. And then once all that was down, and I more or less, you know, had them where they're going to go. And then I started, you know, measuring. You know, I picked an edge and started measuring from the edge to make sure we were there. And so, but I also took the time to make sure all the components were in the right orientation as, you know, they are on the board for the troubleshooting later on. So then what KiCad also allows you to do with a little bit of work, not much, you can render this in 3D. And if my computer ever... is a computer from 2010 or 2011. So here it is.
Wow, look at that. Woohoo!
Rotate.
Look at that. Fancy schmancy. Look at all those solder pins on the bottom there. Look at that. That's gorgeous.
So there are two components on
There's
the
your two capacitors in the bottom there, huh?
The two capacitors. And at first I figured, I asked, why the heck is that down there? And then I realized, you know, it's just, there's so much heat coming off,
yeah,
you know, this thing here that they were going to cook. So they just put it down there.
That is gorgeous. All right, yeah, straighten it out. Let's just soak that in for a minute. That is just, oh, look at that. Just soak it in, everybody. Look at that.
I think I saw a cold solder joint on the bottom there too.
All of this happened. All of this happened before and will happen again. I like that.
That is straight out of Battlestar Galactica. Cylon related, and this was totally a coincidence. I swear, because I love the series, and I had to put it on there because, you know.
Now you're talking about the classic BSG or the 2005 sci-fi remake?
This is the 2005 remake, which the classic BSG, you know, I've tried to watch a couple times, and I just, for one reason or another, can't do it.
The ladies and their hairspray make up for the poor plot and acting.
Yeah.
So
you have HJK on your forehead.
Hey, wasn't that wasn't it Red Dwarf?
So out of curiosity, as you were putting this together and you built your board and you're working out the schematic, did you actually find any errors in the schematic that you had to correct as you're doing this?
So in the schematic, I found that there were maybe 2 or 3 components. There were some components that were either not included or were there that weren't on the board. And so, but other than that, the issue that I had was with a model I used for the SAM chip. And the model didn't come from the schematic. It was a model that someone had created, a symbol someone had created for KiCad. And then that was my problem, not so much the schematic. And so I mean, it's a testament to Radio Shack, actually organizing and putting this out. It was so good. The manual was so good and the schematic was so good that it mostly worked the first time. So I did find just that there were components that weren't on the board or components that were on the board that weren't in the schematic. Just that. And
that could have just been revisions of the motherboard because there was multiple ones from Tandy.
Yeah,
it's a CoCo 1 and 2 Progress. So
exactly. Yeah. Okay. What I did want to show you something else here. What the heck?
As you're bringing that up, one of the kind of things we've kind of joked around over the years is, why did Tandy do that? Did you come across anything like that as you were doing that? It's like, why did they do it that way? I know you were trying to make it basically an original of it, but as you were doing this, did anything ever scratch your head? It was like, why did they do it that way?
No.
I would have done. Oh, okay.
No, not only one time, and I may find out why, and I should have included it here. Like, why was this not? And I don't know if you've seen this this footprint before, but so this footprint for the RF can, I have these like this, right? These slotted holes. Well, up here, there's another slot down here, and I know it's like so you can bend the legs. And I'm like, why did they do it that way? That was the only time.
Yeah,
basically.
Just curious.
Yeah.
I'll throw in a couple more comments from the chat here too quickly. Tom Eric Anderson said a board with AC's digital video and the CoCo SDC built in would be kind of cool. And that was a plan that Tandy had talked about doing with internal ROMs for the disk controller and stuff to actually build that on the motherboard. And then 6C, Kieran Anscombe, the creator of the Xware emulator, he says, well, one of my Dragons has 120K RAM on board now, albeit with some flaws that mean it won't go double speed because I forgot a thing. So all of that, the expansion with extra RAM, et cetera, is definitely possible.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Feature creep. Yeah, the feature creep has just been rolling in as we've been talking about this. So,
yeah. Well, then one critical thing: the old CoCos had dynamic RAM, so the SAM had to strobe every row to keep the RAM refreshed. Well, now static RAM is cheap, so you can forget about refreshing it. You can throw in all the RAM you want, and you don't have to go through all those rows.
Yeah.
So
that saves.
Yeah.
This
also runs cooler, right?
It'll run cooler. Well, this will run cooler also if we, we put in some, some voltage regulation in there and get, something a little bit smarter that we could do these days.
External power supply probably would help run it.
What was that? Oh, an external power supply as well. Yeah. Yeah.
Are you saying that current is not regulated much
on this thing?
Yeah.
Well, it does have fold over protection.
But it's a big honking linear regulator, which throws away lots of heat, where you could make a switching something and.
Yeah, like an LTC 13 something or other.
I gotta say, I know enough about hardware to be dangerous, but I know also enough to know that this is really impressive what you've done, and I just think it's super cool. I'm not a hardware guy, but it's a super cool thing you're doing, and the fact that it's free and you can download it and people can take that and either produce their own or run with it and mutate it how they see fit.
And like I said earlier, I have one working board that's in here.
Yeah.
I've made adjustments online so anybody can go ahead and order the boards and all that. But I do have 4 boards that I'm not going to use.
Okay.
Not the final revision, but if anybody, wants them, so they can populate it themselves and test it, feedback, criticism, changes that need to be made, whatever, that'd be a great help, I think, for getting this thing.
Well, luckily we're somewhat of neighbors, both being in Southeast Florida. So yeah, Pedro's just south of my old neighborhood in Miami where I grew up. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah. Cool. Coincidences, like you said.
Yeah. No, so this was kind of cool because was this the video you were talking about last week, Curtis, when I was in Orlando?
Yes, and actually I have a few of his newer videos up on the news section.
So that's cool. So it's not every day that we get, because a lot of times we'll be playing a video and then we're like talking to the video, speculating and wondering and asking ourselves questions. So the fact that we were able to get a hold of you and hear it firsthand and then pick your brain and stuff, you can't do that with YouTube, you know? So the fact that we have the human being here to help us with that is awesome. So I'm glad you found that.
Thank you for having me on.
Oh yeah, anytime, man. And when you have updates, be sure to come back and give us some updates.
I did have artifacting issues, which I solved.
Yeah, that's one of the videos you put up recently.
Oh, okay. Like where instead of the orange and blue, you got the purple and green or whatever. Or
yeah.
And then you've been working on the RF interference and stuff too, so you got that mostly cleared up. You still got a little bit of snow, I saw, but it's a lot better than it was.
Is that just a timing thing?
No, what had happened was one of the capacitors was supposed to be 1 picofarad. I'm sorry, 1 nanofarad, and I had put in a 1 picofarad capacitor. Now, one of the capacitors that works in conjunction with the 555 timer.
I hate it when that happens. Yeah.
I like your comment too. Well, we'll show it on the video there when you created your little RF interference thing, as you called it. We'll show that.
Yeah. So, how long have you been doing like retro hobby stuff in the 21st century?
Well, so I guess on and off, I've been into old computers for maybe 10 years. And for the last maybe since 2017, I modded an eMac. So it basically turned it into a VGA monitor, and then I made a retro gaming system out of it because I wanted to, keep the CRT. And then that moved over to an iMac G3 DV. And so I modded that thing, and I made circuit boards for that, put it online. People have recreated it. So I've been doing this, I guess, like online at least, maybe since 2017. Like retro stuff.
That's cool. That's cool. And we're finding a lot of new people like yourself and AC's 8-Bit Zone and a bunch of other folks who are
8-Bits in the Basement.
8-Bits in the Basement and Canadians Retro Thing. So it's great when there's new blood coming in and bringing new things to the table. Yeah, Ron, sorry about that.
One last question. With all this time you've spent doing that, are there varying colors of smoke that come up?
Oh, I've had a lot of smoke come up over the years. And yes, I've had gray smoke, blue smoke. I even had red smoke one time.
Oh,
and we had to leave the room when that happened. It's my lithium battery, I think, or something.
Wow.
Oh, jeez.
All right, well, we got a lot of show to cover today, and we want to try to get this show done in about 3 hours, if possible. And we're already looking at, we're not even an hour in yet. So we're doing good. But we're going to keep the train rolling. We're going to keep commercials and breaks and interruptions to a minimum. Pedro, hang out as long as you can if more questions come up. And we really appreciate you being here, sharing it with us. And it's super cool what you're doing there.
Thank you.
So we're going to, I'm looking for my buttons. I got way too many buttons here. So we got a who's new to Discord, and then we're gonna roll straight into Game On. Is Nick Marotta's here? Are you awake? Because the Game On results are dealing with Nick Marotta's game. Paging Nick.
Yes, still awake.
He is here. All right. So we're going to go ahead and do who's new to Discord, and then we're going to roll into a brand new Samuel Gimes and Game On results. So we'll be right back, folks. Not a lot of time for potty breaks.
It's time for everyone's favorite segment, Who's New to Discord This Week?
Please welcome Atticope Tom, Joanne Donaldson, Gary M, Snard, Mike, Lee Does Games, Lex, Magic Fab, Fabian, Joe Bob 256, Bill, Joel, Count Mamma Mia 972, Michael, Jamie KO4T, Nobu, Beanie Weenie, Tom, Drake 9800, Miss Morple, Kate, Mattman, Wi-Fi Sheep, Tom, Erroneous, Daniel, TX Sniper, Patrick, Dreamcat, Zandoff Terra, Philip, Rawfuls, Liam, Bob Truefan, Sean H, D97 Dave, Atari Leaf, The Big Geek, Jason, Mike Rayburn, Alba Labs, Albert, and Pedro. Also, special thanks go to our CoCoTALK patrons, Paul Fiscarelli and Terry Steggy, for boosting the Discord server. You can join us on Discord by going to discord.cocotalk.live.
See y'all on Discord!
And now, CoCo Thoughts by Samuel Gimes. Does anyone actually know what Angelo is so angry about?
Well, Ron Delvaux, you got off easy this week. There was no song parody. And that's a great question.
I guess I know what one of the questions for Nick's going to be.
All right, Samuel Gimes, always keeping us on our toes. So let's get to one of Nick Marotta's favorite part of the shows.
High Score Challenge.
Hiya, everybody. It's me, Angry Angelo. And I'm here to talk to you about this week's game on the results for my favorite game, Donut Dilemma. We had 16 players this week, which is about as many versions of this game has been released so far, so that's a good. So let's get into the results. C. Doris with 100 points, and R. Allan Murphy 2400, Brian Wiesler 4560, Kiana Craker 4670, Canadian Retro Things 9690, Thomasia from Jersey 10,290, Rich N 11,090, Rick U 12,250, Jim Raya 12,390, Joshua Craker 12,680, Mr. Dave 17,790, Nick Marotta 17,850, Cat Lord the 18,960, Tasman 35,290, David Craker 70,210. And the number one scorer this week comes as no surprise.
CoCoTALK salutes Buck Owens.
Buck Owens with 80,600 points. A nice job, Buck. I would also like to give a special thanks to L. Curtis Boyle for not having 5 minutes to play the game before supper this week. You douchebag. Bye for now.
Absolutely true.
Oh, Stevie, good job. Stevie made a video this week. That's awesome.
Bucka Owens, huh?
Bucka Owens.
Bucka.
Bucka. Good job, Bucka.
Oh, good job, Stevie. That's awesome. Thank you.
Good. Back off.
Buck off.
Makes me want to have some sausage.
Mamma mia.
All right, so yeah, we had 16 people this week, and congratulations to Buck Owens and everybody. We had some really good scores. It was a good turnout and good competition. Although it's not a competition, but you know what I mean. A good
participation.
It's a competition. Let's
no. So you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Yep.
For those who couldn't read the text as it scrolled up, that's what Angry Angelo has struck again. So that's what it says when the game starts up. So thank you to Canadian Retro Things for doing the gameplay footage again this week. And so this is a good game. I really enjoy it. And I'm not just saying that because we have the creator of the game with us here. Hey, Nick.
Oh, yeah, the $50 works, eh?
Yeah, no problem. I'm very cheap.
I will mention Buck Owens actually put a video up in the Discord too of actually showing him wrapping the levels.
Yeah, I've got those. I've got some videos queued up for.
Okay, cool.
I've got the ending for those who didn't see it, but yep. If you check out the Discord channel always for additional videos and behind the scenes stuff. And so Nick, tell us about a little bit about the history of this game.
Right. Well, Donut Dilemma started. The original design where it was created was on the TRS-80 Model 1, which was my very first computer that I got way back in 1980. And back then, our family had a business in the local shopping center or shopping mall or whatever you call it, a little donut bar kiosk where we made donuts, sold donuts. And one of the problems, we have this machine which makes donuts automatically. You basically pour the donut mixture in one end of the machine, and the machine plunges it out into oil. It travels along conveyor belts. There's a thing in there which flips the donut over, so it cooks both sides of the donut. And then there's another conveyor which brings them out of the oil and puts it into a collection tray. So, occasionally that would stuff up and the donuts would just be an absolute mess. You know, and it's just you have to shut down and just clean everything up and restart. And that gave me an inspiration to say, wow, what a great game idea.
So was the machine breaking that would make Angelo angry?
No, that wouldn't take, well.
Was Angelo your dad?
Machine. No, it was made up.
Okay.
My dad's name's Anton, so it's sort of similar.
There you go, yeah.
So,
well, Anton's the name of the hero, isn't it?
Names changed to protect the guilty.
The name of the character in this game is Anthony or something, or
is
Antonio.
Oh, Antonio? It is too. That's right. Yeah, I did too. So it is after my dad.
Yeah.
So long ago. So it is Antony. That's right. So yeah, after seeing the chaos that comes about when the machine goes wrong, I thought this would be a great game idea. So I wrote the game for the TRS-80 Model 1. And it's, in my opinion, the best Model 1 game I ever wrote. I wrote about 6 games, and that was good. Now, I was only in high school back then, so, I mean, no big sales. I did sell, copies of it way back then, but it was only at the local club or whatever. So when I did move to the color computer, I did Neutroid 2 first on the color computer. Then after that, I decided, let's do Donut Dilemma again. So I redesigned it for the color computer, and what you're seeing there is various iterations of Donut Dilemma over the years, because Donut Dilemma has been converted now to, well, from the TRS-80, I did the CoCo 1 and 2 version. It got converted to well, someone on the PC actually who was a fan of the TRS-80 Model 1 version, actually started recreating a version for the PC. Never finished it, but it was looking really good, the parts that he did do. I did a version for an Australian locally manufactured computer called the Maximite. I did an upgrade to the CoCo 3, which is the version we're playing here. So, Donut Dilemma has been around in my life for way too long.
So you've literally milked it for all it's worth, is what you're saying.
Pretty well. That's right. I've made hundreds of cents out of this game. So that's right.
Actually, that's not so true. That brings up a couple questions and comments I wanted to make. So the first thing I wanted to ask you is, what did your dad think of being the star of the game?
Oh, he was pretty chuffed, yeah. So. But the big thing with Donut Dilemma was it was the first game where I actually got to sell through Tandy. So that was my biggest goal when I did start programming. I said I want to get my game into every Tandy store. And it wasn't till Donut Dilemma that I achieved that. So Tandy Australia actually did contract me to actually produce packages for them that they sold in their stores. So it was an official, had an official Tandy catalog number and everything. So it did end up selling eventually 3,500 copies to Tandy. So it was a success in that regard.
It's just too bad that the Intertown that controlled the stuff outside of the States, they're just never thought about bringing the game up to market in North America, because they sold a lot more here too, I think.
It never officially went to the US. No, it was Australia only.
It would be cool if you came to CoCo Fest coming up in a red suit like that with a white belt, a couple of white buttons on you.
Gee, I just can't shake this donut thing, can I? It's
okay, haunting. So the original version of the CoCo was keyboard.
Yeah, the original, back in the day, because on the TRS-80 Model 1, it was keyboard only, because everyone used to play on the CoCo 1 and 2 layout. You had the up and down arrow keys on the left of the keyboard, and the right and left and right was on the right, and that was comfortable for keyboard play. So when I did the CoCo 1 and 2 version, I just duplicated that. And back in the day, I mean, I was my fingers were a bit more dexterous, and I could actually coordinate myself. But over the years,
same on the Model 1, right?
It was the same on the Model 1. So when I did this update, I thought, that's it, be gone, keyboard control. And I brought the joysticks in. I also didn't know how to read joysticks back then anyway, so that was another reason I didn't do the joystick
there was
control.
no joystick option on the Model 1 either.
No, there wasn't.
Not except for through third party, yeah.
Yeah, third party, but
I have
it was
with mine too.
With the version that you brought to Radio Shack, did they take it as it was, or did they ask you to make any changes?
The only thing they asked for was a CoCo 3 version. So I did release a version of it, which basically just used the higher clock speed of the CoCo 3 and changed the colors so that you didn't. The original one had PAL artifacting, and it used a stripy technique. You can download that version off my webpage. But for the CoCo 3 specific version, you could say, I got rid of that stripy effect and called that the CoCo 3 version. So it was sort of halfway. It wasn't really a CoCo 3
CoCo 3 enhanced,
version.
basically, is about all.
Yeah, it was just using some of the features.
Now, I did want to mention that one other thing, too, that you didn't mention yet, is that the difference between the Model 1 to the CoCo version is you actually added a level.
Well, that's right. The Model 1 version only had 9 levels. And the only I told Curtis this, the only reason I did 9 levels was because the layout of the screen, the number, where I put the number on the screen to show the level you're on, it didn't center very well when I had 2 digits. You know, there was just a central character needed to be a single character on the display, and to you know, you're counting 1, 2, 3 up to 9. It was nice and centered. As soon as it was to get to 10, it wasn't centered, and that bugged me. I thought, no, it doesn't look right. So I said, that's it, 9 levels. So when I did the CoCo 3 version, I thought, well, okay, that was stupid. So I thought, oh, let's go for 10 levels. So I had to come up with one more level, and level 9, is it's one of my favorites. And I think you might have a video of that later on from Bucko and Nick that shows level. Yeah, he did upload that, and it's a level where there's no machines, no objects. It's just platforms. So at first glance, you think, well, what's the deal with this screen? It doesn't do anything. I just have to climb to the top, and that's it. But yeah, the moment you step on a platform, it starts to disintegrate from under you. So basically, you just fall straight away. So you have to work out how to get to the top while the entire level crumbles below you. So it was a good level. So yeah, that's the story between level 9 levels and 10 levels.
Here's level 9. This is courtesy of Buck Owens.
Oh yeah, this is it. Good one. So yeah, you had to hop so that only alternate parts of the floor would corrupt, which gave you a chance to come back on the ones that were left standing.
He's lucky he was able to get on a ladder here. That's oh no, he jumped across.
Well, no, there is a change here as well. Can you pause this? Just pause it. Okay. Normally on that top right corner, you're meant to go up to get that. Yeah, to get the flashing thing. But one thing in the new version, I made the jumping to be less sensitive, so you can actually jump a bit further in the update than what you could originally. So, and I didn't tell anyone that. It's just that it was very frustrating. It was very frustrating when you jumped. Unless you jumped perfectly, you would fall. So I always found that frustrating. So I made it a bit more lenient. You only have to be on half a platform and you don't fall. But because of that, it makes your jumping distance a little bit, or one tile slightly longer, which means there are points in the game now where you can take shortcuts, like in the top right corner there, where he didn't have to go up and over that top platform. So yeah, and Buck Owens, of course, Buck Owens found it and has exploited it. And it also, I think he had a video where he showed it in another level where he could bypass the big the hard point in that screen, you could just bypass it by taking these big long jumps as well.
He
Yep,
posted a
Buck,
lot of videos this week. I don't know if I
Buck
have that
Owens
one.
found it. Yep, buck off.
But I do have. We got a comment from David Craker saying he loved the concept of climbing the floors of the building, and now you have the wind screen at the top of the building. So here's the wind screen.
Main
which I will
power.
start playing.
Yeah, you turn the power off to bring everything back under control, just like the real.
And then
Back in the days when the donut machine would crack up, you just had to quickly shut it off before it got worse. So yeah, top of the building, yippee!
Yeah,
and then
concept.
And then the
Climbing the
game
floors.
just restarts here.
Nick, I got an idea for a future game that you're going to have.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, this guy does not eat one single donut, and I'd
No,
like
he
to see
doesn't.
him eat some donuts and then try to get through that little hole to go up to the next level. With a fat belly.
I've got a title for it too. It's called Diabetes.
Diabetes.
That actually rhymes. That's quite good.
I do like the effect when you throw the dough, how it kind of makes an arc rather than just being like a laser where it goes straight across. You have to kind of like toss the dough. I like that.
Yeah, it's actual drone. It goes a splat. I think the Tirosati Model 1 version actually printed the word splat. So it did the dots, the splat, but then it had the word splat, I think, superimposed there, but I didn't do it in the CoCo version.
I hated level 6. Those spikes.
Yeah, they are a bit annoying. I should have made that a bit easier, but then I thought, nah.
I like it when he
Make them pay.
You know what I did for level 6? And this
What?
isn't a cheat because it's built into the game. I hit F2 to replenish my dough balls so I wouldn't have to go get the dough
panic
bag.
button. Yeah.
But you can only do that once in the game. So
Only once,
you
yeah.
so I had to survive that level, otherwise I would have been dead.
Yeah.
So but that's
It's
what I did for
doable,
level
but
6.
yeah, it can be frustrating.
But yeah, those spikes are hard.
Yeah.
But I got to level 9, floor 9, which is pretty good.
Pretty close to the power generator, yep.
Yeah.
This one here, you don't, when you jump on a platform, you don't move with the platform. That was only
Exactly.
because I was I was just lame back then. I just didn't know how to make it so that the platform would travel, make the platform, make the player rather move with the platform. So I thought, what the heck, just say it's I think I called it slippery platforms or something. Just like saying, oh yeah, there's oil and oil is spilt in the factory, and that's why this happens.
That's a
Yeah,
feature.
Well, that was a con job, but yeah, let's call it a feature.
But in a way, it makes it more challenging.
Yeah,
Well,
otherwise you would
it
just
is,
ride
it
across and
is,
just grab
yeah.
everything. This way you got to kind of time your running.
Easy. It would be easy, yeah. So
you want to talk about the CoCo 3 enhancements you made?
Well, the enhancements I did were, one, joystick control, of course, because, as I said, my reflexes are just absolute crap at the moment. So I couldn't play the original one anymore. So I thought, well, I've got to make it so I could play it. And I decided on joystick.
Well, it required, 3 keys at once? You had to hit for certain moves, right?
It used the arrow keys, up, down, left, right, of course. But once you got the dough, I think you had to, on the CoCo version, did you have to hold the up and down keys together and do left and right? I can't remember now.
Yeah, that was it.
So, yeah, I think you had to press up and down and hold them down and then do left or right to throw left or right. So it's not impossible. But
the other CoCo 3 enhancement is having that mouse pointer constantly on the screen right there. Where
That's not me. It's Buck Owens' video, I think.
Oh, it's on his video. Oh, it's
There's
not
my
you.
mouse.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Now, here are those spikes.
There's the spikes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Buck Owens,
you gotta.
He worked it all out. He's definitely very good.
He's a good player, yes.
He's very good. And I like the way he worked out. You can jump over the very last spike because that saved you trying to wait. Just jump, and you can jump over the spike even if it starts to come up. You jump over it anyway. So he worked out those little fine tweaks. He's definitely very good.
Is that something you knew, Nick, or has he discovered some shortcuts that you didn't even know about?
No. I knew about that, so that's why when I saw him do it, I thought, gee, he's good. He's worked it out.
These were undocumented features that Nick had put in, huh? So.
Floor 7 got me the first time. I ran out of time because I didn't know you had
I just know that sometimes it's a happy accident thing. So I was wondering if, like, when you loosened up the joystick jumping to be a little bit more accepting of things, that if Bucket maybe found a few things that you went, oh, I didn't know it did that.
Well, I knew about that one because I knew it was a wider jumping point, distance that you could do. But I thought, well, no one will know, surely. Yeah, well.
But so he didn't discover anything that you hadn't
like
thought
there,
of.
for
Yeah,
example,
that's a pretty wide jump he just did there. Yeah.
Normally you can't. You've got to go all the way around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a time saver, big time.
Exactly. Yeah. So that is something he discovered, and I think this level, you could avoid having to go over the bucket in front of the bucket. See that is a shortcut.
Yeah, because that bucket's hard.
Normally you would have to go up and wait for the bucket and quickly go across to the next ladder, duck down before you get your head clobbered by the bucket. So yeah, he discovered it. Once he discovered that, he found shortcuts.
Yeah, because you have to basically run halfway off the platform and then you hit jump so that you don't try to jump simultaneously while moving where you usually fall.
That's right. And
so you jump up and then you just flip the joystick to the direction you want to move to, and then you immediately jump.
That bucket is random. So sometimes you're halfway there and it changes direction and comes back as the and you run back quickly.
That one is, I thought it always went left and right only. I only saw it go left and right.
Yeah, it goes left and right, but
it's not a fixed pattern.
It doesn't go all the way. It could be going right and doesn't reach the end and says, I'll just change direction and go back.
Oh, it does? I know the CoCo 2 version did that, but I didn't think the CoCo 3 version did.
Oh.
It looked like it just went left and right.
Maybe I changed that actually. Oh, that might have been one of the changes too. I forgot. Yeah, because that was annoying in the original. You're halfway to the next ladder and the silly thing changes direction on you. So you have to quickly run back before you get clobbered. So and that was very annoying. So I probably did change that actually. There was a few in-game tweaks that I did do which I always found over the years to be frustrating, and I figured, this will be the easy version.
Right.
Yeah, now you can change your donuts to meatballs.
Yeah, that's right.
I never figured out that bounce on the edge of the platform to not fall off trick. Now I've got to play the whole game again.
Yeah, and David Craker also noticed that there's 10 windows in the building to show off the 10 floors.
Yeah, that was intentional, yeah. So, that's supposed to show that you've just climbed every one of those
Right,
levels.
and David's also asking, were there any recorded high scores from the 80s of this game?
No.
Probably because
David Craker's asked. Oh, go ahead.
It wasn't in the Rainbow then, right? Like some of the other games we had.
No, never. It never. Didn't officially make the U.S. market.
Yeah, there's a bit of a scandal there that you found out though. Somebody basically had tried selling it to Tom Mix, and Tom Mix did advertise Donut Dilemma for a couple months in the Rainbow.
They advertised it. I don't know how many they
without
sold.
Nick's knowledge whatsoever.
Yeah, so when I saw it there advertised by Tom Mix back in the day, I thought, what the hell? So I sent him a letter to, it was only a letter, so I had to wait, 2-3 weeks for a reply to Tom Mix saying, that's not a legit copy. And he replied and said, as far as he's concerned, he's bought it from a legit distributor here in Australia, which he did. So he didn't realize that it was a dodgy release. Huh. And it was the Australian, an Australian company called Computer Hut, I think, back in the day, who sold it to Tom Mix. And they were selling illegal copies of Donut Dilemma.
Yeah, because by that time you were selling it through Tandy only.
Well,
at that point,
right at that time, pretty well when I did discover that Tom Mix was advertising it, is when I got the deal from Tandy, and that was a bit of a interesting story as well, because I wrote the game, I then tried to sell it locally and whatever, and it sold every now and then to a few people at the local computer club, but my real goal was to get Tandy to sell it. So I I sent a copy to Tandy here in Australia and said, "Oh, well, what do you think of this game? Is it something you might be interested in selling?" And they came back and said, "Oh, yeah, they wanted to sell it." But what I didn't know at the time was that Tandy were working with the local CoCo magazine here in Australia called Australian CoCo. They had a competition which they basically said, if you write a game on the CoCo, the best game wins the prize, and the prize is that Tandy will sell your game. They wanted it in time for the Christmas period. And I didn't know about the competition. I just submitted my donut dilemma because, well, I had the game done. I thought, well, let's send it to Tandy. Nothing to do with the competition at all. And it turned out that there was already a winner. That Tandy had already chosen a winner for a CoCo 3 game that Craig Stewart had written back in the day. I think that was Pursuit, or was it Marauder?
Yeah, I can't remember. It's one of those two, yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those two. And so the competition had closed, and the winner had been chosen and everything. But Tandy still came back and said, "Oh, we want to sell your game, but can you do a CoCo 3 version as well?" And yeah, that's where it all happened. So I guess there were two winners unofficially.
So how many CoCo 3
I was
versions
very
were
lucky.
there?
Two technically. I did one where I just took the 1 and 2 version and just quickly did a CoCo 3 patch to it. Yeah,
You didn't add joystick to that one. That was
I
keyboard.
didn't add joysticks, and
okay.
It wasn't really a proper. It was a rush job to satisfy Tandy, because I had to get it to him quickly to get to that 1987 Christmas period. So it was always in the back of my head that, gee, I wish I had done a better CoCo 3 version, and that's what this is.
So what happened with the whole Tom Mix thing? Did they stop selling?
Oh, they stopped advertising, yeah, so they were fine, yeah.
Yeah, it was just in there a couple of months. And then you eventually did sell it legitimately in the States, though I think there were some other scandals there too through Game Point software, correct?
Yeah. I don't know how many they sold, but
it ended up on a issue of T&D software also.
Yeah, well, I don't know how that got there. They
Probably
might
from
have
Tom
grabbed
Mix.
it from Tom Mix, yeah, exactly.
Because all Tom Mix stuff got sold to T&D, so maybe they didn't know that one had been
They
stopped.
wouldn't know, no. So the Crim was some company here in Australia.
Isn't it when you know you've made it, when you actually show up at software trading parties?
Yeah, well, yes, you do. But I wasn't too concerned. I mean, getting to Tandy was good, and they did buy more copies than I would have ever sold without them. So I figured, oh well, by this point, doesn't matter if there's pirate copies anyway, because in Tandy I sold 3,500 copies. So.
Yeah, I just really wish that Intertan had communicated with Tandy Head in Fort Worth and actually got it for the North American market, because you probably would have sold 10,000 at least.
Oh yeah, so 8-Bits in the Basement is saying it's still on sale for $250 Australian dollars on eBay right now. So
I've seen that ad. That's been there almost over a year now.
That's like the New York Times CoCo too, right? It's just
yeah. And I did write a letter to the guy. It says, look, I'm interested, but not at 250. Can you sell it cheaper? He never replied. So I don't know. I think that ad will be there forever.
Yeah, right.
I think it's just like that Tano Dragon on eBay for $999. It's going to be there forever.
Wow.
Yeah. So I don't know how that little scam works.
I mean, that version's not even autographed. You could probably sell your own autograph version for that much.
Well, yeah.
The other bucket's going left and right only?
Yeah, no, so you're right. I think I did change it, so it didn't randomly change direction.
Yeah.
Daddy Burrito's asking if if that company that did the shady deal to Tom Mix, did they ever come clean with you about that?
No. But they disappeared a few years later anyway, so I didn't worry about it.
Karma.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Take that, Buck.
Buck off.
$2 off for that one.
Buck off.
So did we get the answer as why was Angelo so angry? Was it because the machine kept mucking up?
Well, I think I made up a story in Discord that Angelo was a competitor donut company, and that he wanted to take down Antonio.
I see.
And he came in and did his little deed on the donuts to bring down the company, and that's what Donut Dilemma is all
kind of
about.
like the chum bucket versus the Krusty Krab.
That's
it's that
right.
Time old, yes.
Robbins versus Tim Hortons for Canadian viewers.
Keep an eye out for the sequel, Revenge of Antonio.
Yes, Antonio Strikes Back.
I like the way each level had a different kind of strategy to it. Like you had the level with the spring bricks. You had the level where you had to go a certain way, otherwise you run out of time. You had the level with the platforms, the level with you had a good variety in the in the levels.
I was still in high school when I did this, so
it's
that
impressive.
was back in the days when I still had some brains.
Yeah. Very impressive.
What is he throwing?
Oh,
it's dough.
So when you make dough, what we had to do was there was a big mixing pot. And we had to mix the dough flour with the water and make the mixture, and then that goes into the donut machine. So it was just dough, So that's a dough bag. So you have to grab the dough bag, and that gave you 5 throws, and that's what you throw at the donuts.
That's what you call guys who get high scores in 5 minutes before supper. You call them dough bags.
I didn't qualify for that this week. Sorry.
Dough bags.
You never carried through with the Italian theme of meatballs. It would have been cool with meatballs.
Meatball dilemma.
The cheese.
Well, I never made it obvious that it was supposed to be Italian anyway, because I didn't want him to be, Nintendo to get cranky that this was a Mario ripoff.
Now, your current game, Nick, that you're working on now, Zero, you're basing a kind of a mashup of a couple of games, including Donut Dilemma.
It's a mashup. So yeah, it's basically the idea of Donut Dilemma, where you've got to climb levels to get to the, to climb levels to get to the top, and having different machines and stuff you had to deal with. So that's the donut part. But it was also a way of redoing that other dreadful program called Rupert Rhythm, which over the years I've never been a fan of it, and I wanted to sort of redo Rupert Rhythm in the same sense. So it combines a bit of Donut Dilemma and Rupert Rhythm. So
for those of you that really like Donut Dilemma and are waiting for a sequel, you're actually kind of going to get one.
Well, yeah, sort of, I guess. I did change the whole premise of the game a fair bit. I mean, it's different machines.
Yeah, it's more like the mechanics of the game you're kind of expanding on.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, another thing is with donuts, coffee. Some kind of coffee somewhere.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Well, for that, you can play Marty's Nightmare. That has coffee in it. So
some Cuban coffee, maybe.
Some Cuban coffee.
Yeah, there you go.
I was thinking you could have solved your 2-digit problem with using hexadecimal for your floors there.
Yeah, probably could. Yeah,
yeah, I could have.
Well, no. The problem was that the area that was, if you saw the Model 1 version, you'd see there was an area, the scores appeared in a vertical column on the right, and the game was in the left-hand part. So that's different between the two versions. And the column on the right was a certain number of bytes wide, and the central point would only fit a single character. If you went either side, it would be lopsided, and it just bugged me. It was just cosmetically wrong. So
right. It was using text. It was using text.
It was text
characters.
right.
So you had a finite spacing. You couldn't.
I
jigger
couldn't
that.
position it exactly.
So if you did do in hex, you could have gone up to 15 levels because you could have done 1 to F.
Yeah, but then
I mean, average players wouldn't have had a clue what that was.
The 2 digits wouldn't be centered though.
There wouldn't be 2 digits though. You go 0 to 9, A, B, C, D, E, F as a single character.
Yeah, it gives you 15 options.
Yeah, of course, but I mean, not everyone.
But normal
knows.
players wouldn't have known hex.
No, that's right.
Only the abnormal ones.
Or you could have done 0 through 9.
Just
That would have
the
given you your
nerds.
10 levels. So
I could have.
hex.
Yeah, that's right. I could have done 0 to 9.
Thank God you didn't do
that-
in binary. We just have 2 stinking levels. It'd be boring.
Well, that's right. and level in my latest game, whatever I called it,
0 hour.
blank. It does start on 0 actually, but it goes up to 14. And I don't think I actually print the level number on the game anyway, so I didn't have that whole problem. 0 hours a little bit different. It's not linear in that, like in Donut, where you go level 0, level 1, level 2 up to the top. It's got well,
It's more like
basically
group
got-
of rhythm where you get to pick where you're going, basically.
Yeah, there's a foyer on level 0 which has a bunch of doors, and you pick the door you want to go into that takes you to a level. So they're all in jumbled order anyway. You don't know which level the door is going to go to in 0 hour. So yeah, it's not linear. It is still meant to be a vertical building, but you don't know which door will take you to which actual level.
interesting. Kind of like a lobby in a hotel, and you don't know where the elevator is going to go or something.
and
right?
it's actually called the lobby.
Okay. Yeah, neat. I remember a while ago we played something where I think it was a game developers conference or something, about somebody who was reviewing old TRS-80 games said that your game was probably one of the better Mario clones for the original TRS-80 Z80 platform, and that's pretty good accolades.
And one of the best designed, yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty good for $50.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've got that actual video,
It's
but it would
somewhere on
take me
YouTube,
too.
yeah.
It would take me too long to find the part in the video because he covers a lot of
Yeah,
TRS-80 games. Yeah.
So this gave you the fender and a tire off your Lamborghini, huh?
Yeah, that's right. That's right, yeah. Actually, just yesterday, I had a fellow come over, George Benson, and he visited me yesterday, and he brought me a little, what do you call those things, a GoTech, which had already been configured to work on the Australian Microbee computer.
Okay.
You guys don't have that. It was sort of like a TRS-80, not a clone, but what it can do, a lot of people have done, is to get a lot of old TRS-80 games and can reconvert them to the Microbee, of which Donut Dilemma has been converted to the Microbee by Mark McDougall of on the
Transcode fame.
world.
Yeah, he did a lot of
fame,
transcodes like Knight's Lore
he's-
and
Space
That's
Invaders.
right.
Yeah.
And he's actually converted the Model 1 version to the Microbee. And I do have a Microbee, but I never had a disk drive or anything for it to try it. So yeah, George Benson came around yesterday and he brought a GoTech and plugged it into my Microbee, and I actually saw the Donut Dilemma that Mark McDougall converted for the Microbee actually running on a Microbee. I thought, well,
that's cool.
Did you take any pictures?
Well, it actually looks exactly the same as the TRS-80, and that is on my webpage as well. But it's exactly the same.
What color is the CRT? Is it green, white, amber?
Green.
Okay.
Green, yeah. Well, whatever color the CRT is. So
Yeah.
I had a green screen, yeah.
Okay.
Now, your Maximite version, you enhanced the graphics and sound because that had such a good basic, but I don't think you had any extra levels on that particular one, did you?
No. So that one was basically taking the CoCo versions and the 10 levels. But the Maximite one was written totally in BASIC. And it runs just as fast as the CoCo version in machine code. I think it ran at 80 megahertz, the BASIC on that. So yeah. And
more colors and stuff too, I think.
8 colors, yeah. It had 8 colors. And sound effects, it could actually play Amiga mod files. So I had a few sound effects created there in Amiga mod format, and it plays those sounds. So it's actually, I was quite impressed by it.
Neat.
Donuts, a lifetime of donuts.
So have you ever been asked to talk about your early gaming stuff on, like magazines or programs of any kind or anything?
There's that book.
There's that book, yeah.
He was interviewed for a book recently.
Yeah, coming soon. But I have talked about him at PenFest.
Yep. And we've interviewed you a few times too, and we've done doing some shows and specials on your stuff.
So yeah, I've had a few of those ego trips.
All right, are we ready to anything else you want to say, Nick? Or
no, that's about it. I guess the only other thing I'd say is when Tandy sold it for $20 in the stores, which was a low cost title by Tandy's standards, I guess. But I only got paid $3 a copy. No, sorry. I got paid by Tandy $6 per copy, but that included what my expenses to make it in the first place.
Yeah, because you had to make the manuals, the discs.
Yeah, I had to make it all. I had to do the artwork. I had to do the printing. I had to get the cassettes duplicated, packaged up, and freighted to Tandy, the warehouse. So I had all those expenses. So $6 became $3 at the most for me per game. So the guy who made most money from it was Tandy, of course. But I was happy the fact that I finally got to where I really wanted, and that is to get a game out in every Tandy store. So there was no way I would have sold 3,500 copies anyway by myself. So I didn't complain.
Did you have the Tandy logo on your stuff? Or
I did
they
too.
give it to you?
And I think I can't remember if the download I have on the internet.
It's in the PDF. The manual's there.
It's in the PDF. That's right.
It's on the archive too.
Yeah. So a copy of the packaging is there.
Yeah, the TRS-80 RGB logo is on the cover of that. Yeah,
it's got the official catalog number and everything on there.
Well, isn't this also featured in the Tandy Australian Tandy commercial we run from time to time?
Yeah, it is too. You actually do see the Christmas pack that they did sell. In 1987 Christmas, which my game had indirectly been a winner of that competition.
Very cool.
All right.
Thank you, Nick Marotta, for many, many years of fine quality gaming and entertainment, and many more to come.
Okay, that's stretching it, but anyway.
Yes. Thank you, Nick Marotta, for always doing this great segment for us. And so, yes, the suspense is killing me. What is the game that we're going to be playing for next week?
All right. Now, first, I just want to say a quick thank you to Canadian Retro Things. Check out his channel and thank you for the video, and for Buck Owens for the videos you made this week. Thank you so much. All right. So our next week's game is actually a request by Stevie. I don't know if Stevie remembers requesting it, but
Star
Blaster.
That's right.
It's the hypodermic needle in space.
Yeah. An asteroids clone. So
with some enhancements.
Blaster. Sorry?
I said with some enhancements. You have a shield in this one, which you don't in the original Asteroid. So it's kind of a Asteroids with a little bit of Asteroids Deluxe thrown in.
Yeah, true. That's right. In Asteroids, you only had the hyperspace. That's right. So 1981 by Jim Gerrie. So it's Star Blaster is our game for next week. And thank you, Stevie, and thank you to everybody who participated. And we'll see what you do with this game this week. We'll see you next week.
Excellent.
I'll give you one bit of trivia on Star Blaster 2. It was the first non-Tandy third-party cartridge-based game. And that was like $39 US when it came out in 81. Sold by Microworks, who also did one of the better third-party assemblers for the CoCo. So they actually used their own dog food and made their own game for it.
Far out, far out. All right, well, we got to keep the train rolling. So we have about an hour and a half left, and we've got to squeeze in Game On news, regular news, and updates and acquisitions, if possible. So you ready to just keep on rolling on the Game On part with this, L. Curtis Boyle, and give us our Game On news?
Sure.
Because my wife is baking lasagna, and I can already smell it. And so I'm just telling you, when that food is done, I'm pressing the button. You guys can keep on talking, but you're going to be talking to deaf ears. So,
So pretty much the same thing.
Yes, pretty much, yes.
It's never stopped you from eating on the show before. So.
Berzerk with diagonal movement.
Yeah, so Jim Gerrie did an update of his compiled version of his MC10 Berzerk game. So he's got a newer method for handling diagonal movement. Now, the one issue is, of course, there's no joysticks on the MC10, and the in-key command only lets you read one key at a time. So how do you do diagonal movements on Berzerk?
You assign different keys for the corners.
Or you could actually start doing peaks of the keyboard rollover table and actually register more than one key.
You could do that too.
Rollover table.
So that's what he did here. So this is an update to one we've previously shown, and the compiled version actually runs pretty quick.
Oh, look at that. Yes, that looks really good.
Especially when you exit a room, like if you've seen his original basic version, you actually watch it draw the lines and then wipe out the black parts where it's leaving the openings. But once he exits the room here, you'll see how fast he redraws in the compiled version.
Yeah. Woo.
So that MC10 compiler is a pretty decent program. It
Absolutely.
does seem to speed up some of the games like several times. So
yeah.
I think there's a lot of games that you would have had done ML routines with stuff before that you don't have to anymore.
There's a project I'm working on right now in semi-graphics that is going to be perfectly geared towards trying to compile. Yeah. Yeah.
And of course, these are all available for download on Jim's site too. So, which is a constant state of updates.
Looks good.
ET.
Sorry, was that Mark?
He's asking if it was ET. No, those were robots, Marco. Not
They're
ET.
robots, okay.
They look kind of ET-ish, but yes.
They look like the 2600 ET, you know?
Yeah.
And the next one he did an update to is his MC Checkers. So he had a couple of bugs he had to fix. The one bug was the AI wouldn't always do double jumps against you. So even if it could jump you, it wouldn't. It would jump you the one time and then stop, even if it could do a chain jump. So he's fixed that. And then he also added you could jump in the wrong direction with unking pieces after your first jump. And then he also added a cursor key select, so you can actually kind of pick your keys here. So other than that, it's basically the same checkers. So I won't show too much of that, but some bug fixes there if you have that.
King me.
Next up, we had Paul Shoemaker. Of course, we mentioned last week because he's released the CoCo 1 and 2 version of Poker Squares recently, and he did the original CoCo 3 version of Poker Squares last year, is that he was working on a CocoVGA native version of it. So we'd done a little bit of a preview of it last week. He did a little work in progress, and at the beginning of the week, not too long after the show, he did this one here. We actually showed his new title screen, which looked really good. You know, he's got some fully detailed 16 color cards with extended palette for the CocoVGA on the CoCo 1 and 2. And he also gave a credit to the person that's been doing a lot of the drawings of the cards and stuff here. A really good graphics artist, especially for lower res, lower palette type stuff. A little bit of instruction screen there. And the actual gameplay screen.
Those cards look really good, man. I'm going to have to download this.
So I thought that was good. He's progressing fairly well. So then, of course, a few days later, he finished the game.
Hold my beer.
Yeah, so it's totally done. So he actually released a video of it. I think this is the right one out.
Boom. Look at that. 8-bit deck.
Some ML routines for some of the faster bits too. So it's mostly basic. But it's a first, I think the first major CocoVGA game, isn't it?
It is.
I mean, we've got some other basic.
Well, and then we have the island treasure island defense one too.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah, right. The second one, I guess. Yeah.
Of course, there was Kabam, but there was nothing major about that, and that's still not finished. So.
Yeah, Sheldon's ML cartridge game that uses the CocoVGA. And you've got the little king in the bottom there giving you the updates. He actually is animated and waves his sword and talks.
Yeah, that's neat.
Which I don't think the CoCo 3 or the CoCo 1 and 2 original versions have that. So that's unique to the CocoVGA.
Flip one.
And you can definitely hear that sweet, sweet sound of the CocoMech keyboard in the background.
Yeah, you did.
Sounds like Mark Overholzer and David Ladd having a typing contest.
Yeah, and I got mine here too, so I can do the same thing.
Thankfully, it doesn't look like the Burger King.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, that would just make me hungry.
CocoVGA is something that Pedro should put in as a standard in his board.
We've already talked about that.
Yep.
Be a good idea.
Well, the problem is it's got to be produced, and I know that Brendan can only produce so many. I think there's still a waiting list on those who want it.
Well, doesn't Ed produce those for Brendan? So then now that he's got that pick thing, he can actually speed it up?
That part I don't know. Splendid. You won $80 that time.
Yes,
That's really good.
Ed makes the boards, and then Brendan does the programming of them and packages it all and sends it out.
Yeah. So I think the manufacturing might speed up now that Ed's got that thing and he's kind of getting it all geared up and set up properly for all the various projects he's doing.
Yeah, this is really cool.
Where do they send you the money?
Yeah, right. The money that you win.
Yeah. 155.
It's in CoCo Bitcoins. That's really cool.
That's another story coming up soon. But
yeah, that's very cool.
Yeah, it's a really nice conversion, and literally, like, he just released the CoCo 1 and 2 on the regular version just a few weeks ago. So he actually crammed out this CocoVGA version literally just in a couple of weeks. So he's a machine.
Used a lot of code too.
Yeah,
it was mainly just graphic, changing all the graphics.
But still, we're taking some time to convert everything to 16 colors and stuff.
Sure.
So are there 2 versions of this game, or will the same?
There's 3. There's 3. There's the original CoCo 3 version. He did one for the CoCo 1 and 2, and now this is a CocoVGA one using a special 16 color mode.
Oh, I see.
And if you want to get a copy of it, here's the download link on
nice.
Facebook. Brendan's also got it on his CocoVGA page. For some reason, the CocoVGA page was down this morning, so I didn't bother putting them on. And it'll show up in the Computer Archive later, too, so you have 3 possible places to go grab it.
I just checked the link. The CocoVGA page is up.
Oh, it is back up? Good. Yeah, because it was down a couple hours ago. At least for me. Maybe it was some
very nice.
Thing.
Very nice.
Yeah. Next up, we've got Michael Hearn Sr., who's been fairly active recently. So he doesn't have any joysticks for his CoCo, so he did his Franken joystick, as he called it. It was actually, it's kind of like a dual paddle controller with these little spin wheels.
Yeah, that's neat. Like those like volume knobs.
It's like the Etch-a-Sketch joystick.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah.
Now, for some games that would suck, I would have to be honest. But there's some games that would actually work really well, like a Space Assault or Galactic Attack, or
like any of the paddle type games would be really good for this. Huh?
Popcorn, Ketchum, some of those. It would be really good for that. Warlords is another one. So yeah, it's actually good. And he just trying to get a real one.
Possibly a driving game too, like where you could steer and throttle.
One for speed, one for Like what's that one from Computerware, Grand Prix or Morocco Grand Prix, whatever it's called?
Yeah,
a good one.
Needs bigger knobs.
That's what he said.
I don't know. I wouldn't mind having something I could just twist like really fast with just 2 fingers, as opposed to cranking the whole Pong size thing.
That's
neat. It depends if you need precision or if you need to move in opposite directions quickly, which would work better, I think. It was kind of cool that he came up with that solution just because he didn't have a joystick.
Right. Necessity. It's the mother of invention.
Next up, we have Henry Reitveld here. I'll just turn it on down a little bit here while it starts up. But basically, he wanted to do some old school. So what he did here is he took his hard drive, hooked it up to his, I think it's the ID hard drive, and he actually has it precariously balanced on his cassette deck. You can see it on the right there. It's not even in a case, just raw plugged in. And then he uses the Sidekick program to launch Donkey Kong Remix off of a real hard drive. And you can see he's got, I mean, this would make David Ladd happy. He's got like 2 5 1/4. He's got 3 1/2. He's got a cassette deck. He's got a hard drive.
Only a 4-slot MPI though, so.
That's all 4 full.
All 4 are full.
Proving David Ladd, correct that you need more slots. And he starts playing Donkey Kong Remix from that insanely hard version of Donkey Kong.
Very cool. Henry Reitveld did some cool stuff.
Yeah. Now, next, I'll mention briefly, Cuthbert Dragon has been cranking out the videos again. I think he put up another 20 or 30 this week. We've seen most of those before, so I'm not going to bother repeating them. But if you want to check them out, check out his page. But we have a new YouTuber, and that's doing some Dragon stuff here too. And it's called Dragon 32 Games with C. These are games that start with the letter C. And he does these periodically for other machines too, like he's done, games starting with S for the Atari ST or whatever. So he does a lot of retro things, and that's his theme for a lot of his videos is what the starting letter was. Now, I believe this is Polish because he does talk over them, and it's definitely not English, and I think it's Polish when I tried putting in his description and plugged it in to translate Google. So, but he plays a few of these, and the first few are actually semi-graphics games, which I know Nick will like.
Yeah.
Oh, that is really cool. Yeah, this Copter Snatch looks good.
And you'll even notice here on some of these shapes here, which I hadn't noticed before, because this is the clearest video I've seen of Copter Snatch, is that it's actually text characters that he's got mixed in. Now, I don't know if he had the right VDG selected.
Stuff,
yeah, I don't know if he had the right VDG settings on this, because some of them look a little bit odd, so it'd be interesting to try with a different VDG to see if we actually get some proper shapes. But
it's on my graphics for the whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like there's @ signs underneath some of them, and so that maybe he's using a T1 and it's not
lining up properly for what he wants trying to do. But
I like the boulders; those are cool. The explosions are very Defender-ish. No, this is really neat.
Yeah, so that's a cool semi-graphics game we kind of showed before, but this is better shown than normal. But then he put another one, which is Choplifter basically. It's called Chopper Rescue, another semi-graphics game for Dragon, which I don't think we ever saw here.
Yeah, it's a 1 pixel high chopper blade there, which is really, they got actually an animated stick figure, dude, and that's in
for those of you who played
graphics.
Choplifter on the Atari or the Apple II or the Commodore 64, this is our clone of it, which I didn't even know existed until recently.
Yeah.
That's quite a nice one.
So I know that the Gimme X is doing all kinds of stuff to give us more modes that we didn't have, but it would almost be kind of neat if there was a enhanced semi-graphics mode.
What do you mean by enhanced?
Like a higher resolution or something where, it seems like semi-graphics is great, but there's always some getcha on what you can and can't do. But if we could somehow get more semi-graphics, which I guess maybe CocoVGA does that in 64 column mode, but I don't know. I'm just spitballing here. But, if there's a way to get something more out of the semi-graphics mode, because it's an underutilized mode, and technically it doesn't use up a lot of...
at least fully supports all the extended, higher semi-graphics modes now, so at least we have the backwards compatibility back.
So this is kind of like an outlaw thing. I don't remember seeing this one in the States.
Nope, I don't remember seeing this one. This video is the first time I've ever seen this one. I have seen a CoCo version that was done by T&D Software or something before. It's an artifacted one, but this particular one I've never seen before.
Yeah.
Game is from 1975.
And what is this?
The original.
That's Crash by Tom Mix. That one I have seen before.
Okay. I don't specifically remember this screen before, but it looks good.
Yeah, there's 4 screens on that one if I remember correctly. They're all quite different. You're flying a plane for some of it and stuff too. So
interesting. And what is this?
This is Crazy Foota, which seems to be a soccer game. Now I've seen that 3D soccer one. This is more of a 2D one, but the shapes almost look like baseball.
Yeah, like a color baseball a little bit.
But you actually get to pass the ball.
Yeah, I see that. He's running around with the ball. That's neat. Yeah.
So it actually seems to be a pretty fun one. I'm not quite sure the controls yet. I'll have to actually try this one. This is another one I'd never seen
before. Yeah, that is neat. A proper football game.
And green suits it.
Yeah, green suits this one. And it's nice that he chose red and yellow for the players, because depending on your TV, the red and blue are really hard to distinguish. They're both so dark.
Yeah, especially if you had a black and white TV.
Yeah. So the fact that he's using yellow as an opponent color, so that you get 2 distinct contrasts there. And how the ball bounces.
Yeah, it's kind of an indoor soccer thing.
And he scores. Neat. That's cool. Yeah, very much reminds me of the color baseball characters.
Yeah.
Which were inspired from the television.
It's Mario.
It's me, Angry Angelo.
Yeah, that's where Cuthbert kept changing his shape, because sometimes he's a fat kid with glasses, sometimes he's Mario, sometimes he's Pitfall Harry. It's kind of weird. And then basically the rest of the ones he does are all Cuthbert ones, which we've seen 1,000 times, so I won't show the rest of the video. But he had some pretty cool ones I've never seen before, so I'm looking forward to him doing some other ones, because he actually
Dragon really games with C.
See what he comes up in some of the other letters, some other stuff I've never seen before. So that's it for the Game On news.
Okay, what we'll do is we'll take a quick commercial break, and then we'll be back with news and whatever else we can squeeze into the rest of the show. So far, so good. Thanks, everybody, for still being here. Thank you for our audience for still being here and staying awake this long. Good times. We are going to go, and I'm going to play Family Pleaser. So we'll be back after these words, everybody.
And now, these messages. It's a Radio Shack Merry Christmas.
This year, I needed to give a real family pleaser.
Honey, please help me with this budget.
How about a new game, Dad? Please.
And I found it. Radio Shack's Color Computer 2. On sale for just $99.95. It entertains, educates, manages, it's expandable, and affordable. Now that really pleases me.
The Color Computer 2, sale priced for Christmas, only at Radio Shack.
Hi, I'm Kieran Anscombe, author of XRAW, and your brain is resolving sensory input into CoCoTALK.
At GSoft, we make games for the TRS-80 Color Computer, TRS-80 MC10, and Dragon computers. Our basic games cover the range of genres from arcade, to text adventures, to simulations, to 3D dungeon crawls. This is our latest puzzle game from Japan, Fruit Panic. So come on and drop by our website and download our latest games.
Tired of switching your joystick between the left and right port? Want to change between different controllers? Well, Joey has got you covered. The Joey Controller Switch. Take control of your controllers with the flip of 2 switches. Order today at cocoman.biz. And now, CoCo Thoughts by Samuel Gimes. Legend says, when the moon is full, if you go out in the country by the lake and whisper the name of Nick Marotta 3 times, his spirit will appear and he will grant you a product idea.
Radio Shack has a great gift idea for the whole family. Fast action TV games, and they're on sale. Get this 6-game model for $29.95 or the 4-game model for $21.95. With rising entertainment costs, that's a real bargain. You play hockey, tennis, squash, and more. Easy to hook up and great family fun that lasts all year long. The sale price TV games. Only at Radio Shack, a Tandy company.
Hi, I'm Terry Steen, author of Balloon Fire and other amazing games on the color computer. And you're listening to Stevie Stroh on CoCoTALK.
From around the world, what you need to know. Get caught up on News with L. Curtis Boyle.
And now a Muppet News Flash.
All right, and we're back with Mikey's favorite part of the show, Snooze and Newsy.
Okay, so the first couple videos here are actually from Pedro, so I don't know if he wants to comment on or if he wants me to show anything specific on them. So this is the first video he did, just showing the Rev B motherboard, the blue one, which he's kind of shown us a little bit of. And then he's got a couple other ones here, completed installing it in the case and replacing an incorrect capacitor for the color artifacting. And then his latest one with the weird RF thing I made. So Pedro, did you want me to play bits of each, or do you want me to just play the last video?
Yeah, a little. Yeah, the last one is good. These were kind of boring, but the last one's the better one.
Okay. Skip ahead here. So I'll just show that one there because it's a nice picture of the board there. So.
Yeah, looks good.
Yeah, coming together there. I like to take pictures in between because I'm going to share it. Some people might like to see, the in between. And this time around, it took me a lot less to put it together because I was a little bit more confident. I was like, all right, I know this works. Yeah. And so, it was a little faster. I was able to put it together in probably 3 hours or something like that. 3 or 4 hours.
And this is the one you just released. You're showing you're fixing up the RF and stuff here. So
yeah,
it's only 2 minutes, so I'll play the whole thing. And then if you want to comment, and did you want to point out your RF hack there?
Yeah. Okay. So you'll see it now in the video, but. Basically, I just
my CoCo 2 assembled with my blue board. All right.
Is that loud enough, Steve?
Yeah.
There it is.
Yeah.
Everything lines up. Except the reset switch is a little offset, but I've already fixed that in PCB. Looks like a CoCo. Yeah. This weird contraption over here.
What the hell is that?
Sort of improve the RF, but once it's all assembled and I've got
the RF is just all over the place.
RF shield,
sometimes it looks good,
whatever that is.
Sometimes it doesn't, and who knows why, right? So there's a lot of noise these days now from cell phones and stuff like that. But so I was like, do I make a 60 hertz filter or a Faraday cage? You're thinking all these, engineering things, and I was like, you know what? Let me just start playing with it until it looks good.
We get out the
I
tin
like
foil.
the way you incorporated a tin foil hap, squashed it into a tube shape, and just stuck it on there, and the way it worked.
I'm sure there's some physics behind it. You know, somebody will write a paper on that. 100 years from now.
Now, was this the name brand Reynolds wrap, or did you use like a generic tin foil, or does it?
Oh, generic.
Also, I wanted to know, did you put the schematic for your RF enhancer there onto the GitHub as well?
Now,
I'm putting it together as we speak.
So I'm seeing a lot of that the snow falling on the screen right now. That's still some of the noise. The picture itself is very clean though.
Yeah, the picture looks clean. Yeah, and that's still some of the noise. But I mean, it was way worse. It wasn't even legible.
Yeah, it was pretty fuzzy on the original one.
Yeah.
Now, for you other hardware types here, would this just be RF, or would this be maybe a very slight timing problem?
Could be. It looks a lot like Sparkly's, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like
that's what I was
noise. It's like noise.
So noise from the circuitry, you're saying?
Yeah, it could be. I mean, it's a random spark.
Yeah, trace timing issues or something weird. Who knows?
Yeah. Maybe the traces need to be moved around.
But yeah, I mean, you had shown on one of your earlier videos, like the artifacts was out of phase reading the weirder colors, and there was a lot more snow on the screen.
Oh yeah, before it was much it was worse. The quality was worse, and you saw the artifact. It was green and red, right? Was it green and
green and purplish or something?
Green and purple, yeah, green and purple. And I heard someone, and this is kind of how I remembered the game from way back when. And I was like, oh yeah, the colors must be wrong then, So then sure enough, I went online and I saw, that, it's blue and red. So I was like, oh, what the hell's going on? So I started looking through it. I looked for it for a while. I couldn't find it. I was like, well, let me just keep going with what I'm working on right now. I'll look for it later on. And then when I was assembling it, when I was looking for the parts that were in the bill of materials, it's like, I can't find this capacitor, but I got this one left over. I'm like, oh, it's the wrong one. That's what it was. So that's when I figured, I was like, that's got to be it. And well, sure enough.
Yeah, because that's that same phase thing the Apple II actually used, where you could switch between those two to get the two alternate sets of colors.
Yep.
With that one bit on the video screen to control which phase you were using.
So, I mean, I guess I could put a switch in to put the two different capacitors and switch between the two, and get more colors. But I don't know.
This is still my favorite part of the video. This thing's awesome.
The coolest choke ever.
Yeah. Tinfoil, alligator clips, we got all kinds of stuff here.
Coil of wire, yeah.
I mean, that's how we had to improve the picture back in the day. We had the rabbit ears, and we made like the tinfoil flags that went on the ends of them. And
you have to stand on one leg and hold one arm up to the ceiling.
Kept twisting.
Definitely inspired by that.
Yeah.
Definitely inspired by that, for sure.
That makes it period correct.
All that's missing is a Bible.
Anyway, I thought it was awesome. Plus, the picture really did clear up. So if you compare the videos earlier that when he first started the project with the first board, or when he first got the second boards in, you can see it's a lot more snow.
And what you don't see is I have another TV that I hook it up, and no matter what, not even with this magical thing there, does it look good on the other TV. It's just this one. So I was like, oh man, I wonder what the hell's going on there. But
now, have you ever actually tried it with a CRT TV as well, as besides an LCD, or does that make any difference?
No, so I did try. So I have my one CRT that I took out of the trash years ago, and I've been using for all this sorts of stuff. And just the other day, I got the horizontal line across, so I know there's something wrong there. And then I tried to repair it, and I really could not get it. It got worse, and it let out the magic smoke. And and it was really rusted out on the inside, so I had to throw that one away. So I am still looking through garbage piles for the next TV, the next CRT. Now, what I might have to do to this is go ahead and put in, like an S video or a composite video on there and see what it looks like.
Yes.
I do have composite.
Yeah. I mean, even Tandy had an option. It was only for the educational market. Unfortunately, they didn't sell it, to regular people in the stores. But they actually had a composite version of the CoCo 2 officially that they sold to schools.
Oh,
in France.
Well, no, in North America too.
Oh.
There could also be a reason that they went through 3 different RF cans on the CoCo 2. They had the vertical one, they had the one that laid down. They tried a couple of different things.
Well, they obviously never had this. This would have solved everything. They
Yeah.
sort of packaged with it, so.
I want to put that up on eBay and see if
Watch, you'll sell more of these than you ever sell the boards.
For sure.
Put the word rare and vintage in the description and it'll sell. Rare vintage.
You could sell it as much as Donut Dilemma costs in Australia.
RF signal manual attenuation adjustment.
Probably make more dough on this.
Yeah, right.
What you're missing
Easier to
is
source
the black,
parts for it too.
It's true.
What you're missing is that black box with the switch on it.
And a blinky LED light, you need that too.
True. I'll add that. Let me add that to the schematic right now.
Cool stuff.
Next up, we have a couple things from Simon here. So the first one is an updated video showing that smooth scrolling VDG screen hardware trick that Kieran's used before too. So let's play a little bit of that.
Look at that. Cool stuff.
And of course, that's using that trick where you fool between the SAM and the VDG by switching the video mode so that it restarts the counter internally, so it thinks it's starting on an even line of text, and it's not. But you still got a little bit of glitching there.
And fix
and
it
the second one he did... Sorry, go ahead.
So we'll fix it in post.
Yeah. The second one he did was a demonstration of using the 1-bit sound at the same time as a 6-bit sound, like basically flipping between the two to do multi-voice music, as opposed to doing the mathematical add the 2 or 3 or voices together and then dividing by the amount to average the signal out. This is actually using the 2 different sources.
So that technically make it 7 bits? You're doing 1-bit and 6-bit at the same time?
I'm not sure which voice is on which one, but I think this is the one.
This is the sawtooth one, that's kind of crunchy one.
Because there's not too many programs that use both simultaneously. Stagrat's one. They did the sound effects of the monsters and stuff with the 6-bit, and the heartbeat was just a 1-bit.
Okay.
But not too many use both. And it's the same song I think he used in his demo.
Yeah.
From a couple years back.
So,
just redone.
So is it already happening this whole time? I'm waiting for something else to kick in. This is it. This is using both right now that we're already hearing? Or?
Yeah, one voice is in 1-bit, one voice is in 6-bit.
It's hard to tell.
Yeah, well, part of that I think is inherent sawtooth because it's kind of a rougher sound to begin with.
Okay.
So that kind of equalizes out compared to a 1-bit.
Okay. Yeah, I was waiting to hear like a whole nother layer kick in or something, but that was it, huh? Yeah, I really couldn't tell the difference between the mixture.
Hey, Ron, wake up.
Next, Barry Nelson's actually been kind of busy lately, so he did a couple things. Some things were requested from people on Facebook, and then some things he kind of just extrapolated beyond that. So he's released some images of both ROMs and discs. So this first one here is a headless NitrOS-9 Level 1 disc. This is basically a boot disk that does not have the VDG driver for driving the 32-column screen. It's meant to be running off the serial port terminal. So if you have a PC with a terminal program plugged in, or you actually have one of the old terminals, like an 80-column terminal or something like that, you can boot up OS9 Level 1 on the CoCo 1 and 2, or NitrOS-9 Level 1 in the CoCo 1 and 2, and actually log in on your 40, 80-column screen or on your PC with a terminal program or whatever you wanted to. So this is a version of that. And he's got versions in there for 300, 600, 1200, 2400 baud through the bitbanger. So if you just have a straight CoCo with a bitbanger and a drive or an STC, you can actually fire it up and program it or run it in 80 columns on your own PC, or even higher if you want. You can do like 132 columns or whatever. So that's kind of neat.
How much sysram do you get back by not having the VGA and term and all that?
Well, you'd have to add in the bitbanger driver, which is not too big. That's only like 400 bytes or something like that. The VDG driver, I think, is a couple of K. So you'd get a couple K back in your system map from your 64K. So it's a pretty substantial amount.
Sweet.
I mean, even 80 column cards, if they map the memory into the CoCo, you have to take a couple K just for the 80 column screen. Now, there are some other ones, like the one that the Dragon uses on the Dragon Plus board, where that card has its own RAM for the video. So the CoCo doesn't use up any of the memory there either. So its driver is a bit simpler. But this is simpler yet, even because you're not dealing with, having to do cursor XYs and keeping track of stuff. You're just blasting stuff straight up to the serial port and letting the terminal itself handle it. And the second one he did here, for those of you familiar, ADOS 3 was Art Flexer did that as an extended DOS, and he did the original ADOS for the CoCo 1 and 2, so they added some extra things like double-sided drive support and 40 tracks and stuff like that. And then he did an extended ADOS-3, which is a 16K disc ROM. Now the standard Tandy one's like 6.5K. So this has got a lot of enhancements. This has RAM drive support, auto line numbering, a built-in screen editor. It's got a ton of stuff built into it. And what he's done here is he's actually made a 16K extended ROM that you can actually burn into a ROM itself if you want to replace one, if you have a 16K ROM on your disk controller, if you want to hack it to be able to handle 16K ROM. Or you can make it an SDC image and actually put it into one of the slots on the SDC. And he's got this particular one set up so that it actually executes the DOS command automatically. So if you wanted to automatically boot NitrOS-9 or something like that from the ROM itself, then you can actually just put this in. If you hold down the Shift key, it'll skip that and just boot to disk base or extended ADOS-3 basic. So that was kind of a neat feature, because a few people had asked for that too, that wanted to put it on a real disk controller if they didn't have an SDC or if they were trying to run off a real floppy. Plus, for those of you who've never tried extended ADOS-3, it's actually quite nice. It's probably the best. For basic programs, I'd say it's actually better than HDB DOS and YA DOS, because those are all extended DOS functions for the most part. This extends actually some of the basic stuff. So some of the stuff like editing your basic programs and stuff like that is all enhanced in here too. So that actually adds a lot of features for the basic programming. That would be quite nice to have. So
Barry's been busy.
Yep. Next up, Paul Fiscarelli put up a video showing his newly acquired SWTPC 6809 system. Now this is a system that predates the CoCo with the 6809. And he also got a cloned a 6-bit DAC and NewTek Model 68 music card port, which originally came out in 1977. So this is a 6-bit DAC-based system before the CoCo had their 6-bit DAC. So he's been fiddling a lot with this. Now, the SWPC is actually one that used to run OS9 and Flex back in the day, too. So I remember reading about these. It was a kind of a competitor to the gimmicks.
So I grabbed this Southwest Technical Products 6809-based system last November, right around Thanksgiving time.
This is back in the day when these kits were sold with these big honking cases and metal and stuff like this, too. So this is like Altair level type stuff.
That is cool.
I'm up for sale on Facebook, and I wasn't quite sure what I would do with it at the time. But since they don't...
I mean, this is like a 40-minute video, so I'll just skip ahead a bit here. So here he is wiring up his clone of the 6-bit DAC board that was a peripheral board that was sold in 1977 for the SWTPC. So then he worked with Simon and actually started working on getting the sound generator. So they took some of the sound algorithms that were done back in the day and then enhanced them with, self-modifying code and stuff to speed them up. But it actually sounds pretty good.
And you can see as I'm changing these,
because the music sample here
has been extensively rewritten almost to the point.
Yeah, you can kind of just see from the credits here how this progressed. The original Hal Chamberlain from Byte Magazine, September 1977, about how to do multi-voice on a single DAC.
Wow.
And then there's been updates in Rainbow and Color Computer News and 68 Microjournal. And then, Paul and Simon did their own enhancements to it as well. And then they go through how the tone tables are set up. And
insane.
Yeah. To take and manually transcode note data and note durations from sheet music. And
yeah, and some utilities they used to actually create the music itself.
What I did is...
This is insane. These guys are...
harsh, they're kind
animals.
Of loud. So this is one of Simon's favorite speaker systems.
Do we get to hear it now?
We'll have that kind of backfill. The other thing I wanted to show you real quick is I've got my PCB layout.
I guess, guys, got on a big screen up on the wall.
Be in within the next couple days, and hopefully
they
work
out well.
All right, so I'm going to get this set up, and we'll be right back. So to send the file over to the Southwest system, we bring up our connection and send text binary file.
Yeah, there it is inside the chassis in there, huh?
He's got an S50 bus breadboard that just plugs in.
The load command
How cool is that?
S19 file. So
I actually have an S100
S100, but
this is going over 9600 baud, so it goes fairly quick. It's only a few K of a file. It's not very big either. Okay, so it's all set. One other thing I'm going to change, I currently have this assembled for the color computer, and what I'm going to do, which is set at 1 megahertz. So what I'm going to do is change the tempo, and to do that, the tempo value is located at memory location 0E36, so we can go in and change.
This computer did not come with its own keyboard and monitor or anything like that as a standard. You had to hook up terminals to it, so that's what he's kind of doing from his Mac there.
Change that to 2C. And again, to start.
And that was
with,
common to
so
those
step
kit
change
computers
from
back in the
grand
70s.
counter, and we go to 0E00, and then we hit go.
Can you hear that okay, or should I turn it up?
Yeah, turn it up a little bit. I love seeing it on the scope there.
Yep.
1977, you said.
Yep. 2 years before the CoCo came out. 2 years before the Atari 400 800
We'll
came
bring
out.
in the amplified sound.
Basically the same year that the Apple II, the PET, and the Model 1 came out.
Oh, listen to it now. Cranking up the bass. You can turn it down a little bit, Curtis. Okay, that's good. Now you can hear the low end because he brought up the amplifier. Yeah.
That's nice.
First.
It doesn't sound like the four-voice organ sound.
Yeah, that's right. Actually, it's a little bit different waveform. So.
Yeah, it sounds better than the CoCo.
And they look like sine waves when you see them in the scope there. They're not sawtooth.
Right.
It's pretty clean. You don't hear a lot of the kind of harmonic distortion you hear sometimes.
Yeah, I mean the CoCo is perfectly capable of doing this type of waveform too. The one thing bad on the CoCo is that PIA that the sounds generate from is shared with some other hardware. So if you're trying to read joysticks or keyboard, you have to keep flipping between modes, and this is a read, now it's a write, now it's a read again, and if you don't time it right, you get little pops and crap in it. This is more pure, like there's a separate card that is just doing outputs. That's bloody weird.
Well, it looks like the waveforms are kind of switching around. Sometimes it looks a little sawtoothy, sometimes it looks a little...
They're mixing four voices together, and when you can store 4 or 8 different waveforms, that Hal Chamberlain code was set up so that you could do quite a bit with it that even wasn't done in the article because he was doing it on a Kim 1. But the way that he wrote the original code that inspired all this other stuff was to have 4 separate voices with their waveforms being mixed and played back.
Yeah, and one of the CoCo ones did that too, where each of the 4 voices had its own separate waveform. I think even Musica did that, if I remember correctly. A lot of people didn't bother because they didn't.
Yes, Musica does that.
I like how the gameplay is on this. Wow.
Was that Dave?
I think somebody's playing one of David's videos. David's muted. You looking for the really?
Yeah, sorry.
It's
I didn't know it was coming through.
That's okay. No.
It's a really cool, not CoCo directly, but it is based on some CoCo code that was done. So
yeah, it's 6809, man. This is CoCo DNA right here.
Yep. Yeah.
And
Next up, the CoCo Crew.
The amount of insanery that had to go on to put all those pieces together, with Paul Fiscarelli, and then recreating the audio board, and then getting Simon Jonassen to tweak the player and all that kind of stuff. That's just a huge amount of collaboration and insanity going on there. Sorry about that. Okay. Latest CoCo Crew. What do we got?
Yeah, it just dropped yesterday, so go out and grab the episode there. So the basic things here are the description of the extended basic timer function. That's the tech talk part. The review of Double Back by Neil's Corner. And the host discussion was based on a post on Facebook, which when I tried to link, it seems to have been deleted, or at least the link broke at any rate. But it was the hobby's not being fun anymore. That's not saying like the CoCo communities had a problem. It's the prices are shooting through the roof is basically the premise of this thing. Because people are trying to pick up a CoCo 3 and now it's $300-400 type thing. So that's one thing that, that's not fun having to cough up that much cash if you're trying to get back into the thing.
Okay.
And that's where, making breadboards and stuff might actually help, because maybe we can start,
right. Hold that thought for 1 second. Because as soon as I hear the CoCos are too hard to find or too expensive, the first thing I think of is CoCo Pi. And because that, it's not real hardware, but it's inexpensive, and it's a way to recreate a lot of the magic. And which also reminds me, I was listening to the playback of when you guys were talking to Ron Klein last week, and there was something you were saying about the CoCo Pi where you were asking the question, was there a problem or compatibility problem with the Pi 4? But what I think you were meant to say was the Pi 400. Because the Pi 4 image always worked. There was never an issue with the Pi 4.
You're right. Yeah,
but when the Pi 400 first came out, which is the one that has the built-in keyboard, kind of looks like a Commodore 128, there was, if you took the stock image from the website which was for the Pi 4, and tried to run it on the Pi 400, it did not detect the keyboards, and that required the operating system to be updated. So there was never a Pi 4 issue, but there was an early issue with the Pi 400, which is now fixed.
Yeah, thanks for the correction, because that actually is what I meant.
Yeah. But yeah, so somebody says the CoCos are expensive. That is an unfortunate byproduct of the community growing and the demand rising. But the alternative would be, some of these hardware alternatives and the
like
CoCo Pi,
Mister,
or like the CoCo 2 clones that are coming out. But honestly, if you want to play with your CoCo, CoCo Pi is a great way to do it. It's not the real hardware, but once you get past that, it's the real experience. And as like what Ron Klein was saying, there's so much stuff on that image. There's so much you can do. In such a little form factor, and for less than $100 to have a Pi 4 with the case and the heat sinks and the fans and the HDMI cables and the power plaque, you can get everything and the SD card for under $100, and then you can run MC10s and CoCo 1, CoCo 2, CoCo 3, DriveWire, MC server. There's so much you can do on that CoCo Pi. So and then of course it's a full Raspberry Pi, so you can run Linux and Raspbian, and you can run the RetroPie images and all kinds of stuff. That is, to me, is so compelling. That
it depends on what you're approaching, what part of the hobby you're coming back to, though. If you're a hardware tinker like Pedro is, I mean, getting a Pi is not going to let you build CoCo hardware.
No,
no,
true.
Does nothing for
true.
you whatsoever. That's for the software people. So I kind of understand what I kind of basically agree with what he's saying. I mean, it does suck that the prices are shooting up the roof, and we've got some people that are strictly collectors, and I mean, some of them just put them on a shelf, never touch them, and to some people that's a bit of a waste. Like, you should be using them at least. Letting them be used in the wild type thing, which, I mean, I can see both. I mean, some people like collecting, some people like playing with the real stuff. So it depends. But I do agree that the prices, especially on the CoCo 3, the CoCo 1 and 2 is still somewhat affordable. There's enough of those around, you can get them. But the CoCo 3 is getting to be, the unicorn.
Does the CoCo Pi run on a Pi 0?
No, it's a Pi 3, Pi 4. Recommended a Pi 4.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he did try it, and it runs just too slow, I think, from what I remember. Especially for CoCo 3.
I noticed they mentioned the Glenside newsletter. That's guys. Thanks for mentioning that, guys. Treasure Defense.
Can you imagine if it would run on a Pi 0 though, and you can make like an iPhone size CoCo.
Well, if it run on a Pi 0, I mean, that's a $5 computer.
Nimble says, with the rising cost of CoCo Entertainment, CoCo Pis are real bargains.
Yeah, and the Mister just went up in price too, because didn't Intel stop their subsidy, so it suddenly jumped up $40 a crack or something? I think I've been seeing that on the Amigos channel, because a lot of people are complaining about it, that the price went up quite a bit.
Yeah, that's the DE board, I guess.
Yeah. All right, next up. We've got a video from a guy named Tom Best that I'm not familiar with before, but he kind of goes into his very first computer was a CoCo 2. And this is his original one, as you can tell by the yellowed case, etc. But he kind of goes through his history with it. And he actually, he did hardware tinkering, which actually shows some in here. I'll fast forward to that in just a second. But he also did some programming. So he was writing some basic game stuff. He'd write ML subroutines to speed certain parts up. So he was pretty well an all-around guy on it. So he was just kind of doing a history of what it was like. So here's his, CoCo 1 and 2 he's taken apart. He's got the vertical can one, so it's basically the same design. But he's already got some extras on here that he added himself. Oops.
CoCo 3 keyboard.
Deluxe keyboard.
A deluxe, because it's got the black.
The black bezel.
Oh,
okay.
He made the same mistake in the video. He thought it was a CoCo 3 keyboard. And
I was going to say, because the keys were a lot wider than the case was. I didn't notice at first that what Ron just pointed out. That's not the stock keyboard.
This is a later generation where they simplify things, and it has a much smaller motherboard, as you can tell from looking here. So I'll just tell you a couple things about this very quickly here. You can see a lot of videos of people using these things on YouTube and whatnot. So
fast forward, he's talking about that little handmade thing he stuck into the keyboard there, because it's got a couple of functions.
Well, for me, so I added a video output. And that's what this little circuit board here was for. And actually did a couple things. So this it looks kind of funny, this little set of sockets right here. But what this socket did right here, I had a basically this is a hex. I think there's a hex inverter chip here. What else is on this one here? Let me see. I'm not sure exactly, but I remember it's been a long time, folks. I pulled this out of a box. It's funny I still have this. Basically, these transistors are an amplifier for video output. So it's a standard output, I added this jack in the back. I hook up a monochrome monitor, so I didn't care about the color on this, even though it said color capability. I was doing programming, I wanted a good clean color, and I used, I think, a VM2 monitor. If I recall, it was actually amber color, not green. But I had that monitor plugged into this, but the way the color computer normally displays is only uppercase, and it would give you a big green blocky screen. You have 32 characters wide and 16 characters down, all uppercase. Lowercase were shown in inverted case. So if you know your ASCII characters, you learn a little bit about that. You learn that you can flip over one bit and actually invert the case. That's what this basically did right here. So this chip would do an inversion on the correct pin for the video display generator chip, which I'd unplugged and plugged in this socket.
Oh, so he got inverted text on his monitor. So it's like
that way I could
dark
have,
on.
So basically, the composite mod and the inverted video switch all in one shot, basically. So.
Gotcha.
So actually, he really knows what he was doing here. So I'll have to reach out to him and see if he wants to get more active in the community again. Because he did this video just to kind of do a history for his channel. Like, this is how I got started in computers. Kind of like what Pedro said. That's where you started the CoCo too. So I don't know if he's gotten interested in pursuing it in modern times like Pedro's been doing, or even designing his own motherboards or whatever. But but yeah, there's a lot of people kind of coming out and saying, that's what got their career started. And I think that's something that's a bit more weighted on the CoCo side. I think more people got into hardware or got into programming on the CoCo proportionally compared to some of the more popular 8-bits like the Commodore 64s and stuff, which I think a lot of people just use them as game machines that happen to be a computer. And I think proportionally our numbers are a lot smaller in total, but I think proportionally within those numbers, we have more people that actually took it as an educational thing and went to the next level of hardware and or software. And others people's, they just went on to buy Nintendo or whatever afterwards. So.
I think so. That's what it seems like to me.
Yeah.
Right, because the CoCo strong point was programming. It didn't have sprites or anything, so it was kind of weak on gaming. But the 6809 was a good engine for writing stuff.
Yeah, and we had some really good OSs like Flex and OS9. And it was a really good hardware hackers computer, as all you hardware guys can attest to.
So this board's just like the blue one, huh?
Seems like it's got the vertical can, yeah.
Is that the exact one? Can you tell, Pedro, if that's exactly?
Yeah, it looks to be the same.
It does have the vertical RF cam.
It would make sense if you had.
And notice they take the solder mask off where the clips are.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how they came. They had that bare spot under the clips.
Yeah, that's what made the ground connection.
Yeah.
It makes sense if you had the Milky keyboard, you'd upgrade to the deluxe keyboard.
Yeah, actually, I did send him a message on text there because he was saying it was a CoCo 3 keyboard. I mentioned that the CoCo 3 keyboard has a light gray plastic background. The deluxe has the black. And that this was actually the unreleased keyboard from the deluxe, which was supposed to come out in 1985 until Tandy canceled the project after they had 50,000 boards made and a bunch of keyboards made. And they threw out all the motherboards and everything else.
What a waste. What
yeah,
a waste.
Great to get your hands on one of those.
It would have been.
There's a few of those are kicking around. Boise's got one, for example. But,
kind of like what they did with the educational thing, where they had stuff where they said, "Look, we're not going to build this anymore, so we'll just put all the parts in a freaking bag and sell it to the schools where they can have make it a kit and build your own CoCo." They could have done something like that, where just build your own deluxe CoCo. And some of those might have still been, a few more have been in the wild if they had done that, if they had just sold the boards and stuff as...
Yeah, and that was a nice machine. It had a hardware serial chip built onto the motherboard. It had composite video built on the motherboard, the sound chip from the Speak Sound Pack built on the motherboard. A better basic ROM had a RAM disk built in, all kinds of stuff on that. And most 9 drivers were done. I've actually seen the source code for them.
So there's a guy who knows how to remake motherboards.
We just got to dig one up from Allan Gordo or wherever it is.
Yeah,
and,
but as you guys were talking to Pedro and the feature creep started flowing in. Well, we could add this and we could add that and everything else. And the questions have been asked. Has anybody thought of making a modern day CoCo? And I think I threw in my 2 cents that for us people, if you made anything new. And we're already having this problem now. We've got all these add-on pieces of hardware that are not yet being fully exploited. So we've got multiple sound solutions. We've got all kinds of stuff. So yeah, you could throw the kitchen sink on a motherboard and you could integrate everything. But how many people are going to have it, number one, and how many people are going to support it? So any new and improved CoCo that is made it's in my opinion, for me to buy it, it would have to be 100% backwards compatible with every other CoCo piece of hardware and software. And then, anything that came out to take advantage of the new bells and whistles would be great, but it would still have to be CoCo 1, 2, or 3 compatible for me anyways. I realize I might be in the minority, but I wouldn't want to buy some pseudo CoCo thing that's not completely compatible, because to me, what's the point,
Yeah. And that's where you get into the problems with, stuff like the CoCo 3 FPGA, because it adds a ton of stuff here, but it's not really a CoCo anymore at that point. It's its own thing.
Right.
So I don't know, like a deluxe might be something, because we never did actually have it in the wild. There are a few that exist that are out in collectors' hands. I mean, that would be something to kind of be cool to see, and actually play with. When we have software for it, we don't have the ROMs. That's one thing. Somebody's going to have to take the ROMs out of the existing ones that are still around and actually duplicate them off, because Microsoft did do some enhancements. And
honestly, for me, this is just my wishful thinking, but let's say we didn't get into the fact that we've added, sound chips and blah, 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 and throw the kitchen sink at the motherboard. If somebody could just make a hardware compatible CoCo 1 or 2 motherboard, but that supported like USB, where I could plug in a wireless keyboard to it, and like USB and HDMI, just a couple of modern conveniences, but there was no other new hardware at all. If it didn't have a sound chip, if it didn't have a real-time clock, but it was a new CoCo that I could plug in a few modern accoutrements to, that would be valuable to me, because that's what I love about the Pi. I can put the Pi on a little shelf somewhere, and I've got a wireless keyboard and a wireless joystick, so I'm not tethered to the device.
Isn't that what Mr. David's done?
In a sense, but he's using a Raspberry Pi and all kinds of other stuff to augment a real CoCo. But like if somebody was to make a new CoCo, that would be features I'd like to see, is that, USB or, Bluetooth or something like that, where I could plug in other keyboards and controllers to it, but still have it be hardware compatible and software compatible with old stuff like cartridges and DINs and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I know one thing that was mentioned in the chat earlier, and this is actually something Tandy had kind of designed in the CoCo 3 design for the future. Unfortunately, that never happened. Was to have an internal disk controller, and the CoCo 3 is actually set up so that it could do that in the ROM and in the controller chip. And having say something like the CoCo SDC built onto the motherboard as part of it, so that your cartridge slot is free for whatever else you want, and you have the SDC built in, and maybe have a little slot on the top. You can come out and just put your SD card right directly into.
Yeah, or even just having like the equivalent of an MPI built into the main board, so you've got kind of like a bus like the Apple II had, where you could plug in multiple cards into the same thing, but now you got a bigger PCB. So, where do you make your
Yeah, there's a lot of things you could do. Like Pedro had mentioned, you can customize his current design to whatever you want. So.
Right. But
maybe the community can get together and say, we do want a new CoCo, and let's try to standardize a new design, and then make one that everyone's or mostly everyone's happy with.
Well, you're never going to have everyone happy. Be careful what you ask for when you
if
start
you get a majority though, that might not be a bad idea.
Yeah. When you start getting these design by committee, feature creep, community contributed nightmares, you're going to wish you never opened up the question. So
whoever sends you money, follow their design
goals. And then honestly, with anything else too, it really should be kind of like a GoFundMe, where here's the design, but I don't want people to say, I want it, I'm going to buy it. Now put your money where your mouth is. If we're going to start buying parts and producing things, you need the prepay, pre-order, and now we know we've got the money, we've got the interest, we've got X number of consumers already out there, and now we're going to make it happen. Because if not, everybody's going to say, it would be great, I'll buy one, and then never buy it. So those would be concerns that I would have too if I was going to be fronting my money to design something. So
that's true.
Yeah. So, but we live in a time where very few things aren't possible anymore. Circuits and motherboards and replacement parts, 3D printing. It's insane.
Yeah.
The fear the fear I got when I started getting back into this, oh my God, there's a finite life. Some of these chips aren't produced anymore. You can't get them. It's good to see that FPGAs are replacing some of this stuff, but it'd be good to see these things little by little being replaced. I mean, I'm not saying like the CoCo Pi, because I'm sorry, the CoCo Pi. I'm saying more like having chip replacements, because I do like being able to pull the chips out and playing with the board and understanding that part of it.
Right.
But but I got a little bit scared. I was like, oh wow, this will one day die unless something's done about it.
Right.
Yeah, Yeah, and that the whole open source project you're involved with, which is trying to duplicate, motherboard designs from a lot of old machines here, is basically to cover that history, because once these boards crack or melt or get destroyed in fires or whatever, they're going to be gone, and there won't be any of these.
Well, other than FPGA, is there a way to reproduce chips that aren't being manufactured anymore, like something like the SALT or the SAM or one of some of these?
So luckily, the SALT is one of those where it can be, it's easily reverse engineered. There's enough documentation on it where you don't really need the SALT. They just wanted to save space, but they tell you what it is.
Yeah.
That's an easy one. I think like the SAM's a harder one. You can still get the 6809. There, I think it's Rochester Electronics sells it.
And the 6309, which is a drop-in replacement with enhancements, has been out since the 86 from Hitachi too. So.
Yeah. So those are still being made. But they're expensive. But FPGAs can do obviously this sort of stuff. But at a certain point, I guess people will ask, well, is it still the same thing?
Yeah, we've had those discussions lots.
Yeah. But maybe like I saw one guy made a 6502. He emulated a 6502 on an Atmel chip, and it worked. Like the chip. I think he plugged it into a board and everything. So. Things like that can probably be recreated in microcontrollers and stuff, and probably get more life out of this. Who knows?
Right.
Yeah. The greatest thing I think right now is we have things like CPLDs, FPGAs, 3D printers and stuff like Stevie was mentioning, where we can now do this stuff a lot cheaper. Like it's always been possible for somebody to try to design a chip replacement or design a new case or whatever, but it was just phenomenally expensive. So you'd never do it unless you had a huge market you were going for.
Right.
And now, like you got 5 printed PCB boards duplicating a CoCo 1 and 2 for how much?
Yeah, exactly.
That would have been thousands back, 20 years ago.
I mean, total with shipping and everything, I think it was like $46 or $47 for the 5 boards.
That's not terrible
No, it's not bad at all.
Yeah.
Especially for that size of a board. I mean, we're used to seeing smaller things like a Gimme X or a RAM upgrade, but that's a full size board. So
yeah.
Yeah, we're getting some answers from the live chat in here on that too. Yeah, so 60 saying SAM is pretty well documented. Some of the internal implementation details have useful side effects that you'd want present in a replacement. Dave Phillips, and pretty much any chip could be duplicated with like an ASIC, application-specific IC, but it would be prohibitively expensive in our quantities, meaning we're not doing a lot of these in our community.
I guess it depends what you mean by prohibitively expensive. Like the Gimme X is an FPGA basically, and he's selling that for less than $100.
Yeah.
Even with RAM.
ASICs are usually specially designed over a purpose. So
Yeah.
We were talking a custom ASIC versus an FPGA.
Yeah, an ASIC. Yeah.
But I mean, the Gimme X is an example because it plugs into the Gimme X socket. I mean, you don't have to design a new motherboard around.
Yeah, because you can't get those. There is no other stock of the Gimme chip for the CoCo 3. So one had to be, and that's gonna. I would imagine at some point in time there are going to be certain chips that are just gonna evaporate off the planet. They're not going to be any old stock to replace them with, so we're going to have to reinvent certain pieces of this machine at some point in time,
Yeah. Read.
Cool stuff.
Okay, next up, Brian Michael Smith, and this is we alluded to it a bit earlier here. There was a article on various technical sites here about somebody had made a Bitcoin miner program for the Commodore 64. And then PC Gamer and some other people calculated it's going to take about 50 trillion years to make one single Bitcoin. So then the argument started, well, maybe the CoCo could do it in 25 trillion years.
Yeah, because it's 16-bit registers, cut that in half, right? So.
And then they said, well, we could run double speed in the CoCo 3. It might only take like 17, 18 trillion years type thing. So. And I'm thinking 639, I could probably cut that down again to maybe 10 or 15.
Gimme X, get it up to 2.86 megahertz.
Right.
Yeah, might be able to get it under the 10 trillion year mark.
Yeah.
Welcome to this week's edition of Exercise in Futility.
Yeah, some people view the entire retro hobby as that, though, Jason. So.
Right. I wear, like every now and then I'll wear one of my VCF t-shirts when I'm out and about, and I actually had a young guy at the whatever, like your gas station convenience stores, and it's like VCF Midwest. What is that? He goes, what is a vintage computing festival? I go, it's kind of like a Comic-Con for old computer nerds. And as soon as I said that, I was like, oh yeah, I get it. I go, some people are into classic cars, and some people are into classic computers, and that was enough to answer the question where it made sense to somebody. So.
And then he kind of like just
No, he was actually, he thought it was kind of
he's
cool.
actually interested. Okay.
Yeah. So
I thought he might have just said nerd and then walked away.
Yeah,
so.
right. So.
Listen, guys, I got to get off here. I'm
all right, Pedro. Thanks for being here, man.
Thanks for coming by. Thanks for producing the board, and thanks for the interview.
We'll chat more on Discord. I'm gonna tell you about the Florida Retro Club and stuff. And if I ever get down to Miami, I'll have to give you a call.
And feel free to come on if you have any updates, or even if you just want to take part in the panel asking questions. So.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Still hope to get you and ACs on the same time.
Yeah.
Maybe next week. We'll see.
All right. Sounds good.
All right. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Take care.
Bye.
Next up, John Laury did some little bit of programming here. So did you want to kind of explain this?
Oh,
here?
yeah, that was neat. I saw this video.
Yeah, I saw this like 100 years ago somewhere, and I had reproduced it for a program I wrote also 100 years ago. And so I kind of revisited it today, and then someone in the comments there, George Phillips, I think it was, mentioned that the same effect is in Robot Attack. And my mind was telling me that it was Berzerk, that I had seen it in the arcade, but maybe it was from Robot Attack. But in any case, when I saw the effect, I was like, I had just gotten into machine language programming, and I'm like, I know what's going on there. I can do that. And so just the other day, I recreated the routine. And basically all you're doing is peeking into the video RAM. And if it's a space, you skip it and leave it alone. If it's not, you increment the value by 1. And then you set a flag saying that you've made a change. And then at the end of the screen, when you get from the top to the bottom, you just check to see if a change was made. If it had, you basically just reset the flag and reset the beginning of the video and run it again. And you just keep doing it until it gets through the whole process with blank spaces. Because eventually, you're advancing it around. If it gets up to 255, it's just going to roll around to 0 again.
Right.
Eventually it's going to get to the space.
Right.
And when it does, it gets skipped to the next time around. So eventually it'll make it through. When they're all spaces, it'll make it through without setting the flag, and that's how you know it's done.
Yeah, it's a neat effect. I've actually seen it used on a few different. Plus, there's some that do the bit version, like in P14. Quite a few took the byte and just rotated the bits through, kind of until they all went to zeros to clear it out, and you do kind of a dissolve effect. I think Outhouse does that, and some other games
same
too.
Basic idea, really.
Yeah.
I had to write that for.
It's very visually, it's very eye-catching,
Yeah.
And it's very fast when you're dealing with a 512 byte screen
Oh yeah, I'm
in
slowing
assembly.
it down.
Yeah.
I'm actually slowing it down here. If I take the delay out, it takes about a second and a half, 2 seconds or so.
Yeah. Well, even on the P-Mode 4 screen, I mean, it goes pretty quick because quite a few games use that to dissolve between you died and starting the next screen, or maybe transitioning to another level or something.
And that's what 12 times the amount of memory.
So I'm just gonna throw this out there, just based on time. I was hoping to wrap up the show today around 5, which is in about 20 minutes. So we'll probably have time for news, but we might have to bump updates and acquisitions till next week.
I'm actually just about done the news. We've only got like 5 left. So
okay, all right.
And some of these will go quick. So this one here, Radio Shack is actually selling the CoCo badge T-shirts again. Now that they had been selling it, and then they kind of disappeared for a while because I tried looking it up and it was gone. But it seems to be back now. So if anybody wants the ones with the actual CoCo version of the badge, right from Radio Shack itself, the current incarnation. And they're actually on sale right now for $3 off.
It's not really. It's a fake Radio Shack. It's not really.
Next up, Robert Sieg, who's been doing a lot of experimentation. He's actually been writing some graphic editors and stuff here too for the MC10, and he's got his TP10 printer, and he made that banner program. Is now working on dumping graphics. Now the TP10, I haven't used one so long, but I think technically it's not supposed to support graphics normally. It's supposed to be a text-based printer only. And he's been doing some hacks to get it to do actual graphics, and he has a little sample on the roll here. So he's actually working on some further tweaks to it. So he hasn't released the program for it yet because he wants to add some more functionality to it and get it to do some more interesting things. But we might have a graphic dump for the TP10 coming soon for the MC10.
Very cool. TP10 and dump go hand in hand.
Yep, toilet paper 10. That's what it stands for. I stick by that. Next up in the... Go ahead, Rick.
I was just going to say toilet paper isn't that wide anymore since COVID. They knocked a half-inch off.
Government cutbacks.
Yep. Next up, we've got the last three stories, which are all Dragon related. So John Whitworth, who's been making the Dragon Plus boards we've talked about, which is the 64K extended RAM and 80 column card and all that kind of stuff. So he's been working on the things here. Now he's basically, the Dragon Plus is duplicating a board of the same name that was made by CompuSense back in the time period in the 1980s. And in this case here, he discovered a tiny error in the original CompuSense boards, which can cause some video problems on some of the original boards. And he's got a simple fix for it, which involves just adding one wire to the ground, which is, he's highlighted a couple different places you could tie it in from to fix the problem. So he's got that fixed on the newer versions of his board. But if you have one of the original versions of the board and it has that issue with the video, this little one wire patch will fix it right up. So thanks for sharing that. And then the next step here is he also got a video explaining an issue he was having with the new Dragon Plus board that he has also fixed now.
That's
too.
some really cool VDG timing he's got going on there. Look at that.
So basically, he was having a problem, and he thought it was a problem with the Dragon Plus board. So he was swapping parts, trying to figure what the heck was causing the issue. And basically, it ends up that he had a bad 78 HC04 chip on the Dragon itself, and it had nothing to do with his board at all. So he was going through all this trouble for nothing, basically. But basically, runs it to show that it is actually running correctly, and then what exactly the fix was. So I will let you guys kind of find that on your own if you're doing the Dragon here. But it was scrambling some of the characters. It was shifting the screen over by one character and wrapping it around, doing all these weird things, and swapping that one little tiny chip out on the motherboard totally fixed it.
That looks like John Lowry's demo right there.
Yeah, kind of does. You can do it through a program or through a hardware fault.
Yeah.
Take your pick. And then the last one here is from the Digital Orphanage. Now, we've covered them. This is the fourth out of 4 videos. So this is the guy that's been fixing all the Dragon 32s that the Computer Museum...
Oh, the restoration guy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he goes through a bunch of these ones here where he's checking RAM and finding out that he's got stuck bits on certain ones, and then he had a problem with the keyboard here.
That's an impressive microscope he's got there. Huh?
Yeah, this is the faulty clear key here where you found that the soldering wasn't quite well. And this has got such beautiful photography. I think I'll show this little clip here just to see it.
So we'll check that too.
I'd like to see David Ladd's thumbnail zoomed
Looking
up
at
like
solder
this.
joints for the clear key, it's clear.
Look at that.
Failed.
Ooh.
So let's clean them up and get some fresh
That is a
solder on them.
notorious problem.
Really?
Vibration over time.
It's got some of the ASMR music going on there too, huh?
Yeah.
And magic flux.
Magic flux.
Little reflow, little solder, fixes things right up.
Sloopy just chimed in saying that's painful soldering to look at. It's awfully judgmental of you there, Sloopy. What we're listening to here now is the soothing sounds of solder sucking.
Let's throw it.
Just relax.
Might be the show sucking too.
Yeah.
We're not sure. I like that effect where it changes color. I've never really watched soldering that close. But...
Old joint.
Old.
You were too busy clutching your hair at that point.
Yeah, well, the smell of that was kind of overpowering, I have to
It's
say.
the same type, but with a faster speed rating. It should work fine though. Although it's possible to unsolder an IC on a Dragon.
Yeah, this is where he had to
as each
replace
pin
the
is
RAM
soldered
chip because
on
he actually
both
had a RAM
sides
test
of the
program that was showing some stuck bits.
Is he cutting the legs on this one?
Yeah, apparently on the Dragon it's soldered. I think actually he probably explains it here, but there was a reason he had to cut it because it was so much easier.
Quite tricky. So the easiest way is to snip off the faulty chip
Of course,
and
I talked right
unsolder
through that. So let me
each
just rewind that a bit.
side
It
to
can
the
be
board. It's quite tricky.
safer for the board to do
So
it
the
this
e-
way, but it's pretty destructive. Well, it destroys
This
the
is the
original
closest
chip.
memory IC I could get.
Right. Better know
It's the
for
same
it's worth
chip,
a
but with
dime.
faster speed
Yeah.
rating.
And the
It should
original
work
chip
fine.
doesn't
Because
work.
you're worried about possibly
Although
popping
it's
up
possible to
traces from the
unsolder
circuit
an
board
IC
of too
on
much
Dragon,
heat or something.
As each pin is
Right,
soldered on
absolutely.
both sides.
Yeah, if it's
Or
like
when
the
you try
Coco
to-
board.
Quite
Yeah.
tricky.
I think he explained too, like
So
it's
the
soldered on
easiest
both
way
sides
is
of
to
the
snip
board,
off
so the
the
pins are
faulty
soldered
chip
on the bottom and the
and
top.
unsolder
Oh.
Well,
each
you
of
would
the
have
board
solder on the
individually.
top and bottom because you would want to have proper flow through.
Then it's a
on
case
your
of
solder
looking up the
joint,
remaining
so-
solder and
And to get
cleaning
enough
with
heat on
IPA
it to do a
before
proper
soldering
flow
in the
through
new
can
IC.
lift the old traces.
Right.
If he
Yeah,
says
because he was
color
basically explaining he
purple.
had to do it this way because if you have to like cut the pins off so you can desolder and then quickly get the pin pulled out.
Well, and
and
he's
then
trying to
clean it
do
up
it with,
afterwards.
if he's trying to do it with the wick, that makes risk to damage. You know, you may have better luck with like the desoldering tool, like myself and David and a few others have.
He's got at least half of the desoldering tool on his right there, that Anstey thing. Maybe he doesn't have the vacuum part.
Yeah,
the vacuum, the heated vacuum pump would be most helpful. But yeah, if I just had solder wick and an iron, yeah, I would cut the chip out too, and that's what I did in the past because I did not want to damage the traces on the circuit board, especially these cheaply made ones.
Yeah. So in this case, the museum had a ton of them, which he's done repairs on them before. So he fixed, 4 of them had bad RAMs. The one had the bad clear key connector. So he's done all that. He's returned them, and now the computer museum is actually thinking of kind of selling a few of them off. They don't need that many in their collection.
Okay.
So they were going to have something where people can actually sell them and help support the computer museum.
Oh, neat.
Which is cool. And then he decided, he's got to test some more games. So he did
Absolutely.
Wizard's Quest.
The title music suitably sets the scene. And thankfully the game gives you some control over the difficulty level. These are all the control instructions you're given though, with nothing printed in the cassette inlay. One thing missing from here is if you press the P to pause the game, you'll need to press R to resume, otherwise it looks like the game has crashed, because P does not unpause. As soon as you enter a room, ghouls will appear that will drain your life energy. In fact, just being in the mansion drains your energy, as the percentage ticks down rapidly in the
This very much
right
looks like a
corner.
Specky game.
So straight
I
away,
think it was,
there's a
actually.
constant
Yeah.
pressure for you to explore, to find food and spells to restore your health.
The reason there were so many Specky to Dragon and vice versa ports is because the 256-192 resolution was common between both. The only difference was the Specky had that second layer where you could do
The
squares
color
with different
attribute.
colors.
Yeah.
Which of course called that color clash thing because everything in that square had to be the same
Yeah.
colors.
It's kind of like putting the plastic film over the CRT. It's just, it's going to be there.
A lot of little squares.
Yeah.
With the pause function
And he,
providing the only respite.
his photography,
However,
though,
in
to
the
be able to
September
zoom in on those
1986
chips and stuff
edition
is
of Dragon
amazing.
User Magazine,
Yeah, he's got a really
he
nice setup
published
there.
some from a micro SD card. It can load emulator tape files from machines like the BBC, Spectrum, Lynx, and
Okay,
of
so it's
course,
like the
Dragon.
Castuino, similar to that, right? Or Maxtuino,
It
it's
then
called, huh?
recreates in real time the tape
Well, he
audio
actually
of the
makes a
machine.
comment. It's not really a Max because it doesn't work with everything. It doesn't work with WAV files, for example. It has
Okay.
to be a special tape format. Then he goes through Airball, which explains how frustrating that game is.
That looks very much
Agreed.
like Night Lore. It looks like a Specky game there, yeah.
And here he was, doing some work on.
The loading screen to a game will appear, but that's it. At first I thought it might be an issue with the tape loading hardware. The tape signal enters through the cassette port, goes through some components in this corner of the board, and across to pin 2 of the second Motorola peripheral interface adapter. A general input-output IC used for the keyboard, joysticks, etc. However, the logic probe shows pulses continuing throughout the load sequence, so the problem is likely somewhere else. But that's not the only issue. A memory test shows lots of bits stuck on and off in upper memory IC39. Could these issues be linked? Well, let's replace the memory IC and see if that helps.
No socket?
Yeah, I don't know why he did mother socket thing. That would have made.
Well, the memory
Future
error is
proof
now gone,
for fixing.
but will it load again? Indeed it does. And
Flagenbird.
you might also notice I've managed to get Flagenbird loaded on a real
And Steve
Dragon.
Bamford.
Yeah.
Turns out Windows Media Player was cutting off the audio just before the end. Switching to VLC made it load first time. Now I have the Maxduino though, I only need to use this method on the MTX.
Another reason to avoid Microsoft.
That is so smooth, the multi-plane background.
Time for another break, and that of course means more games. Rommel's Revenge was released for the Dragon 32 in 1984.
More games. Sounds so
60
much
comments
better.
on Airball. He said it isn't frustrating. It's just 80s hard. That's very true. Games were much
It's a
harder. They were
reasonably
designed
fast
that
and
way.
faithful clone,
Perfect,
and as
pixel perfect
smooth as
jumps,
likely
etc.
possible given the process speed in the Dragon.
And modern kids just don't. They're too spoiled. I still think this is the best battle zone clone we had. I think it's better than Rommel 3D.
Just like the arcade version, you have to fire it where you think the enemy will be, not
Is
where
this,
it is at the moment.
Isn't this basically Rommel 3D?
Yeah, but it's actually done more like a
returning
vector style, so it's higher res without color, so it actually looks closer to the original arcade. And plays closer, to be honest. This is one I would like to 639 optimize sometime, just to speed up all the calculations there and see if we can get it running, as fast as the original Battlezone and smoother.
Yeah.
Or maybe this massive
Wow.
But while discussing it on the Dragon Owners Facebook group, a very friendly and helpful group indeed, it was suggested it could be a faulty PIA, creating lots of CPU interrupts.
Wasn't the fuzzball,
Probably
huh?
the one connected to the key.
Yeah, because basically this one runs really
I don't
slow.
have
Like
any
it takes
spare, though,
30
so I'm going
seconds to
borrow
do
the
anything on
second
it. So.
PIA in this machine. This means cracking out the desoldering gun.
Yeah, I won't play the whole video, but he goes through each of the 4 dragons repaired and goes exactly what was wrong, how he determined what was wrong, and how he fixed it. So for the people that want to learn, how to troubleshoot dragons in specific here, that actually is very, very useful. And his photography is just beautiful.
Yeah, this is like a National Geographic level documentary here.
Yeah,
cool stuff.
He even played Glove here for those of you who remember the later Gauntlet clone. And he did this because one of the dragons he had, the last one he actually gets into, had some extra circuitry added to it, which he had to figure out what it was. But I was reading the comments that some of the people had put in the Dragon group, and apparently it's a way of doing 64K upgrade on a Dragon 32, which of course only had 32K, done totally different than any other 64K upgrade for the Dragon 32 anybody had ever seen before. He did it in a very strange way, but it worked.
Okay.
And I don't understand it all, so I'll let you guys, determine it. But watch that for you hardware guys, or watch this and just let me know exactly what the innovation was there and how it works, because it's a little bit above my head. You can dumb it down for me next week. But as a test, he actually ran Glove, because Glove, if you have 64K, will preload all the levels and then just run from RAM.
Loading
if you
all
have the
levels in the
32K, it has to
64K,
load
yeah.
them in as you go, type thing. So
see that.
And that is it for the news.
All right. Well, how much time do we have? We have about 10 minutes. I don't know if that's enough time to get one I don't know if that's Brian Wiesler, if you even have time to tell us without even showing us. But can you get yours in about 10 minutes, Brian Wiesler? Your update?
Yeah, I can just show just a couple of things real quick.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and spotlight you. And that might be all we have time for today, kids. But secret to showbiz. Always keep the audience wanting more, right? When you come back next week. I like the donut dilemma you have running in the background there.
Oh, yes.
Quality product placement.
There you go. Yep. My check's in the mail. So.
Yeah, it is.
Here's a little clue as to the thing I'm going to be showing real quick.
What is that, a Gimes? What is a Gimes?
Gimes, exactly. Yes. I had sent one of my CoCo 3s off to Mr. Ed, and I had him go ahead and install a Gimme X in here with the...
there you go.
Went ahead and did the ports there. I gave him the okay to go ahead and put some holes in the case there, which he installs the ribbon cable
breakout
here.
board, yep.
Yep, and whoops. And then I went ahead with the 8 meg version here, so you can see there's the board and the Gimme X in there. So I haven't had a chance to play with it yet, but I'm going to fire it up here maybe this evening or this weekend here. So.
Oh, James Differdaffer is asking, is Gimex, is that a type of watch? New from Gimex. It's
Ed was
and
saying
then also,
oh, go ahead.
Also, no, was that your question?
I was just going to say that Ed. I was talking to Ed. And he said almost everybody's going with the 8 meg. I went with the 8 meg too.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, for just a few dollars more, really, it's not that much more expensive, and then you got a little bit of future proof there, for anything coming down the road there. So
yeah, I'm gonna have to actually, I think, upgrade mine from the 2 meg.
We're all waiting on the Nick Marotta's NitrOS-9 gaming extravaganza that will require 8 megabytes. Crikey!
You'll be waiting at least a few decades for that, I'm pretty sure.
I'm holding out for the Gimes X. I think
the Gimes X.
Yeah, I think that's for the MC10.
And then also this week here from
Jim Rice, I'm waiting for the Gimex Sinclair.
The thing.
The Gimex Sinclair. Yeah. Sorry, Brian.
And then, no, that's fine. And then also from Sheldon McDonald, he has his Treasure Island Defense.
Oh, dude, you got one.
Yeah. So, and it really comes. It comes in this nice cartridge that he 3D printed. It's really pretty cool. It has kind of a interesting sort of.
the rib
shadow. Yeah, kind of rib pattern there. If you
Looks
kind
like
of
a
see that right there.
Nintendo cartridge or a Super Nintendo cartridge a little bit. Yeah.
It reminds me more of the N64 cartridges
Okay.
with the ribs.
Okay. Ribbed for her pleasure. Yeah, no, that looks really good.
And then what's kind of cool is he also 3D printed this this case for it.
Yeah, the
Oh, the sleeve.
Yeah.
Yeah. Normally that would be like cardboard or something like that.
Yeah,
That
so
locks
it's kind
in
of
the freshness.
Yeah, it's got that new cartridge smell still, right? So, yeah.
And then before he sent it to me, he asked me if I'd be interested in a couple boards. And these are some unpopulated disto boards. So like from the disto supercontroller and what?
Oh,
so
like it's just,
Yeah.
are they through hole? Are they surface
Yeah.
mount?
Yeah, he put out
they
a kit.
were they part of a kit?
Yeah, you could get all 5 disto boards in the manuals for a while from Tony.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
we're just clearing out stock.
Okay. And he didn't have any use for them. He wanted if I would like them, and it's like, sure.
That's cool.
So yep, got that. I got a few other things I can show, but if there's somebody else that wants to take the last few minutes, if not, I'll burn the last few minutes here.
Anybody else had something they can show that we could show briefly?
No, Brian, just move to your right a little bit.
Oh, he wants to see no, that's your yeah, you got. He wants to see Donut Disaster playing there.
Oh, right here.
Yeah, just for a second or two. Okay, that's enough.
Did
As you were.
anybody else have anything they wanted to talk about today? Show off? Mr. Murphy?
Yeah, I got a couple of 3 things I can do real quick. One, OS9. The
Level 2
manual
operating
for level
system
2.
manual. Yep.
To quote Nick
Yes.
Marionettes, it's the most advanced operating system ever designed. And what makes
Right.
it so good? Ease of
And,
use.
I think I actually may have outdid Brian Wiesler for once. Because Treasure Island Defense, both versions. So it's Treasure Island Defense. You've got a GMC version and a CoCo PSG version.
Ooh.
So your choice of noise. And the really cool part is that regardless of which noise choice you go with, the game itself sounds very similar between the two. So he managed to make the sound work really, really well on that. But yeah, 3D printed cases. It's got a little tiny laminated instruction card in it that you can also get the image of. Sheldon was real nice to send one of those. So those are pretty fun. It's a great game. But the thing I really, really wanted to show off that Rick Euland, he kind of gave it away last week, is my CoCo has a network port now. And we are working on network drivers for the CoCo IO. And I've been able to successfully ping and start to configure this via assembly to go with the basic code that they already have running. So, yes, network cards exist. They're working. They're getting better. Rick's doing some new cool stuff with crazy oscilloscopes and things for it. And that's my updates.
Well, that's another thing to put in the pot of feature creep for the new CoCo motherboard is we're going to need to have Ethernet in there. USB, Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, Ethernet, HDMI.
Real-time clock.
Yeah.
Drive
Multi-pack.
Driver, TTL, RS-232, ESP.
USB 3.
USB-C.
USB-D.
USB-D.
We just need a PC that runs OS9.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah. Well, I do want to say thank you to all of you guys, especially to Mark Bosley in particular for hosting and streaming the show the past few weeks, but for the whole team in the panel to always come together and keep things going. I had some last minute issues a couple weeks ago that prevented me from doing it, and then I had a planned out of town last weekend. So I missed a couple weeks, but you guys kept it going and gave us some great shows. I really appreciate that. I've been listening to the replays, and I like listening to the show when I'm not even on it because that's like all new to me. It's like, oh, that's cool, oh, that's neat, you know. And so, and it does seem to translate well to audio. Like when I'm listening in the car and I listen to the audio podcast, there's very few things where I say, oh man, I got to go back and watch the video. I think you guys do a great job. doing the show. So I want to thank all of you for doing it, and for everybody who still comes in and watches the show, because we check the numbers, and the numbers are always good every week. So that's great. So thanks everybody for doing that. But I hate to be selfish, but if you could smell what I'm smelling coming out of my kitchen right now, it's just like, dude, this lasagna is it's killing me, man. It's killing me. It's smelling so good.
You haven't taught her to just bring you your food on like a plate with a beer?
Yeah, and I want to sit down and eat with the family type of thing. Thanks Nick Marotta for the great game this week for Donut Dilemma. And thanks, Nick Marotta's not here, but he's always doing a stellar job with our Game On Challenge. Ron Delvaux with his musical critiques of all the song parodies. He's always doing a great job there. So how about we play the outro, and then we'll be back for final thoughts after this. Thanks, everybody. This concludes another episode of CoCoTALK, the world's leading live talk show featuring the Tandy Color computer. For all things CoCoTALK, visit us on the web at CoCoTalk.live. We'd love to hear from you. Send feedback, suggestions, even segments via email to CoCoTalk@CoCoTalk.live. Consider supporting the show with a purchase of merchandise from our retro swag shop at 8bit256.com. If you'd like to become a patron of the show, click on the Patreon link on our website, CoCoTalk.live. CoCoTalk would not exist without the community, its cast, crew, and contributors. Thanks go to Allan Murphy, Bill Noble, Brian Joyce, Brian Wiesler, Curtis Boyle, D. Bruce Moore, Danny O'Connor, David Ladd, Eric Canales, Grant Leedy, James Diffendaffer, Jason Reichert, Jim Brain, Ken Reichert, Mark Bosley, Mark Overholzer, Mikey Furman, Mr. Dave 6309, Nick Marotta, Nick Marotta, Paul Fiscarelli, Richard Lorbieski, Rick Adams, Rick Hewlin, Rob Inman, Ron Delvaux, Samuel Gimes, Sloopy Malibu, Steve Bjork, Terry Steggy, Tom C., and many more. Please help support the CoCo community. A list of various contributors and resources are available at imacoconut.com. That's imacoconut.com. The original CoCoTalk theme song is copyright 2008 by D. Bruce Moore and Greg Sheeler. The new CoCoTalk theme song is copyright 2020 by D. Bruce Moore. Both are mixed, mastered, and produced by D. Bruce Moore. CoCo forever, people! All right. Well, we're back for final thoughts, and while we were playing the outro, it was decided in honor of Nick Marotta, our famous Italian Australian that we have here, we're gonna do an encore presentation of the Game On results featuring the very authentic voice actor we brought in. Professional show here. We brought in an authentic Italian voice actor to do this, to do the voice of Angry Angelo. So here's that encore of our Game On results. Hiya everybody, it's me, Angry Angelo, and I'm here to talk to you about this week's Game On results for my favorite game, Donut Dilemma. We had 16 players this week, which is about as many versions of this game has been released so far, so that's a good. So let's get into the results. C. Doris with 100 points, and
You're selling the
Murphy,
count from
2400.
Sesame Street right
Brian
there.
Wiesler, 4560.
I love
Kiana
the count.
Craker,
Yeah.
4670. Canadian Retro Things, 9690. A Thomasia from Jersey, 10,290. Rich N, 11,090. Rick U, 12,250. Jim Raya, 12,390. Joshua Craker, 12,680. Mr. Dave, 17,790. Nick Marotta, 17,850. Cat Lorda, the 18,960.
I want a donut.
Tasman, 35,290. David Craker, 70,210. And the number one scorer this week comes as no surprise.
CoCoTalk salutes Buck Owens.
Buck Owens. with 80,600 points. A nice job,
Oh,
Buck.
back off.
I would also like to give a special thanks to L. Curtis Boyle for not having 5 minutes to play the game before supper this week. You douchebag. Bye for now.
Great stuff.
Oh, good stuff.
Really incentivized me to fucking kick your ass for the time. Wow.
Fuck off, Curtis Boyle.
Anyway, I have one quick announcement to make.
Okay.
The Amigos are doing their triple threat, and they're actually in the middle of the stream right now for it. They're doing. They did the Sinclair show already. They just started the Atari 1200 XL show. The CoCo show is next, featuring Springster. So if you want to watch that live on Twitch, that'll be on probably within the next 20 minutes. On their Amigo Retro Gaming channel on Twitch, and it should automatically show up on our feed too if you're on Twitch. That show will be released on YouTube later, but that'll be weeks ahead. So if you want to watch it, up ahead, it'll be up pretty quick.
All right, there we go. Say goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye, everybody.
Next week.
Goodbye, everybody.